Welcome to the state of Texas, one of two that will run in the Lone Star State this season. Tonight, we're at the first road course race in the state, Circuit of the Americas, and we are here for the Drop in the Hammer pre-race show. Welcome to the coverage on the KBueno Racing Network as we prep for race 18 of the 2025 four-wide racing TJ's Team Series. And alongside Charlie Beyer, I'm Kenneth Bueno, ready for another road course stunner. We've only had one road course race before this, Charlie, and it was at Watkins Glen. We learned a lot from there. Obviously, Brandon Hawkins, the favorite from that one going into tonight's race. But many things that we should expect from a road course like Circuit of the Americas, which, number one, doesn't handle anything like Watkins Glen and has poised some great races in the past in this series.
Thank you, Kenneth. Thank you for having me again tonight. And yeah, a lot of things don't change from road course to road course in terms of driver performance. Brandon Hawkins currently top the boards right now, but you mentioned the handling. Watkins Glen has a lot of grass on the east side of the racetrack where if you make a mistake, that's going to cost you a lot of time. Circuit of the Americas, however, this is a purpose-built open wheel track. So much like a real-life visit to this circuit a few weeks ago, we're going to see a lot of drivers using the paint and have drivers have their tires off the tracks to gain any sort of advantage.
Yeah, this track is all over the place. Many different corners that we'll encounter, from short hairpins to long winding S's to different types of sections that will challenge every single driver. And while they did shorten the configuration in real life for this year's NASCAR Cup Series race, we're running the OG layout of the 20 turns, each and every sector of this Circuit of the Americas Grand Prix circuit being utilized tonight. We are now nearing the final several races before the regular season finale taking place at the World Center of Racing at Daytona. And Charlie, I mean, we're getting down to the wire here. Countless times we've talked about what the playoff fight is going to look like, and it continuously changes and fluctuates as we get week by week. But after Pocono last week, it was really fun to see which drivers stood out amongst the rest and which drivers took a big downward dive into the depths of that playoff cut line area. What should we expect this time by at COTA, where, you know, on a road course, things are very different skill gap wise?
It's different skill gap wise, but there's also no caution. So you're going to have a lot more time to settle in coming up these next four races. You don't want to do anything egregious to put you below that cutoff line and risk your spot into this four-wide TJ's Team Series playoff. But with these last four races, it is crunch time, as you mentioned, but the workload is significantly increased at a place like COTA, going to an unpredictable and loose, tight walled racetrack like Dover, Texas, but also Daytona, where a lot of things can happen. So I'm expecting a lot of good battles to try to make it into the playoffs come these next four races.
Diversity, that's the big thing that you're pointing out there, Charlie. The different types of racetracks we'll encounter even beyond this point. I mean, countless times we've harped on it, just how different this schedule is, especially in this second half where things really matter the most in that final playoff push. COTA, being a wild card road course race tonight, surely should jumble things up when it comes down to the points standings. But let's take a look in the rear view mirror and get ourselves refreshed on what happened at a last diverse racetrack that hosted the series. Pocono, the Tricky Triangle, hosted the series in fabulous fashion. BBR held the front row. Francisco Bacalhau, in another pole for his long-tenured career, takes the front row with Jaden Porter. And we had a ton of excitement from the drop of the green, Charlie. Plenty of 2 and 3 wide action. As everyone tried mastering these corners, it seemed like every driver took themselves for a ride, and for the most part, we had many different leaders. That does include Lawson Peel taking the spot away from Francisco Bacalhau. We'll get another look at it. I think we just may have restarted things over. But the big point about it, Charlie, in Pocono is the different leaders, the type of racing, and I think the aggression that everyone had in the midst of the draft.
Yeah, and at such a wide racetrack where momentum is also a huge thing coming off of the corner, track position was important, but these huge runs and being able to fan out that wide made for a really exciting and a race of longevity in terms of saving your tires and putting yourself in the best spot towards the end, as we saw with the battle with the drivers when it all came down to it. But that was a great race last week. Lots of action.
And there's AJ Green among several drivers that found trouble. Lawson Peel, most notably, was back on strategy, got hit by Rodney Roberts. He got a piece of damage, and he wouldn't recover till later in the race. But that seemed to be the trend. As the cautions came out, strategy kicked in. KBueno Racing elected to pit a little earlier for fuel to extend the game on fresh tires. Bakayao will later take the lead. And then in the battle for the top spot later on, Kyle Benson getting a tussle with Lawson Peel and tagging the 4-time race winner this season, Steven Maggio, in it. Took some of them nearly out of competition, which led us to a green-white checkered restart. Bakayao giving one more shot at his teammate Jaden Porter inside loop through the tunnel turn. The Kentucky native of Porter held on strongly, and while Austin Reedy hung back in third, he would send a Ford Mustang hard into that 30 Toyota Camry to the inside of turn 3, trying to get second place. Slams into Bakayao's machine. A ton of drama there that caused a massive parking lot at the exit of the final corner, but Jaden Porter walks away with his second win of Season 7 right after Darlington, and already very much locked into the 4-wide racing playoffs. And a driver that was very hungry, Charlie rather, as we were getting into this season, one that really wanted race wins. He finally has 2 as we get a look at our playoff picture. All of those guys below 9th in that playoff fight.
Yeah, this is where it really heats up with 4 races left. 16 points is a pretty big gap, and with a field size that can vary from race to race in this 4-wide series, you're going to make every point and position matter, especially at a road course where you need to do your best. Because there is no safety pillow of a yellow flag to kind of reset the field and have them keep going again. So tonight's going to be that first step for people like Michael Newbrow, Austin Reedy, Christopher Bishop below, but also for people above to kind of maintain that positioning.
And as you see from last week, the big change around 15th and 16th, it was about 2 or 1 point between Austin Reedy and Brandon Banks right around that cut line. But because Reedy made that move in turn 3 on the white flag lap, he forfeited all of the track position he would have finished with, and thus dropping him 20 points beneath that cut line. And now it's 16 between Michael Newbrow and Banks, who continues to cling onto that final 15 spot. He's been there for a little while throughout the back end of this regular season. He's hanging on by a thread, but he's going to try and continue that momentum upwards to keep himself inside the top 15. And this fight's still very much not over. And as we get into Daytona, more storylines about who can bounce in and which drivers may get left out of the playoff fight in 2025. One driver who's well above this list, one that has not found the race win yet in the season, but someone that is a sure playoff lock, is Williamsport, Pennsylvania's Kyle Benson. But we talked earlier, and he told me just how hard it is to get a win in this series, how much the league and everything means to him, and just his overall hunger of trying to get win number 1 in 2025.
Like this, feeling like a weight just lifted.
Still trying to get that win though. I mean, it's always big in the playoff system, but I just feel really good. This is the first time that I've been this high in points. Usually about this time, the last few years I've been kind of climbing through points, but the league is more competitive than ever, so it's hard to get a win every week. But I think if I just keep doing what I'm doing, I definitely could get one. I mean, it's definitely good to have the vocal person and voice the issues that goes on, and as an admin for the league, you kind of have to be, and I just kind of lumps into one, and at the end of the day, you're representing 4-wide as a league, being the admin of it, and Tyler's been great. I mean, he's probably one of my best friends, and he's one of the people that I really look up to in some ways, because he does a lot of stuff for the league and a lot of stuff for other people, and he's just the overall good dude. And I knew Tyler since I was 17 years old when I first got the sim, so I had nobody else to run with, and when I found this league, and I was running with somebody else, and we all joined the group, their Discord call, and it's been kind of gone ever since. But I mean, it's just kind of just finishing races and just keeping the consistency that I have all year. And I've been the more consistent driver this year, but I haven't had the win, which is kind of sucks. But mainly just keep it together and just try to get into the playoffs, and then that's when the real season starts.
With no filter.
For a driver like Benson, Charlie, I mean, this road course probably isn't going to be the outright track where Benson can call himself a race winner, but he's very fast early in this practice session, continuing to put laps around COTA right now. But the biggest thing that I took away from our conversation earlier today was just how hungry he was for a race win and how he seems to be in a more comfortable spot this year in comparison to some of his previous seasons in four-wide competition. He was nearly a championship driver last season despite only winning one race. And it seems like here in 2025, back with this next-gen car, the confidence is as high as it could ever be. Benson just needs that one win to let that confidence shoot up even higher.
Certainly no stranger to road courses and road course wins with a win at the Roval in season number 5. But yeah, in a good spot in the points, Kyle Benson is. But you know, when you're kind of approaching the back half of the season, you know, you're in a good spot, but you're not secured. So, I mean, what a good morale booster that would be to get that win out of the way and kind of keep that streak going of at least one win in a season for him. So I'm sure he's happy with where he's at in the points right now, but I mean, these are drivers, they want to win, and he wants to take that checkered flag at least once.
The last time that Benson achieved victory lane was that little clip that you saw earlier in that package that we ran at Daytona, beating his teammate Austin Reedy by just a couple of feet at the start-finish line. It was a very crazy finish at the World Center of Racing. Surely he's looking for a more convincing victory this time with the next-gen car. Well, speaking of Benson, if he wants a type of race win, even if you don't achieve a checkered flag outright on the racetrack, you can do so via the Big Bracket Challenge, something that's on the line that Tyler Murray and the league admins decided was a good idea to get drivers in the hunt. And at the bottom left of it, you can see Benson in this round from COTA against Mikey Neal. And as Benson is very fast in these road courses, despite the fact that Neal has been gaining some momentum as of late, Benson looks to achieve some further advancement over to the next race of the season at Dover and just continue his momentous journey. But plenty of drivers that have surprisingly been eliminated either by not being in the races or just by finding some bad luck when the green flag drops. It's really cool though to see everyone still going at this March Madness style bracket for some playoff points and points that will matter for a win and that will count for playoff eligibility.
It is the month to do this bracket challenge for sure, as we have March Madness in real life coming up. But yeah, this has been fun to keep track of, and it's only going to get more intense come Daytona. That's quite the place to settle a bracket challenge champion. We're going to see who's going to make it in the playoffs, who's going to win the race to possibly secure a spot, and also track two drivers specifically trying to beat each other. That's going to be fun.
The road course ringers, we'll discuss that over the course of the night, just how important that is and which drivers they are as we get into the spotlight of this 18th race of the season. But that doesn't mean that COTA is going to be a regular schmegular race. This track, in its history in 4-wide, has brought us plenty of fireworks and a ton of storylines with it. Here are the last 2 times we've been to COTA. You won't want to miss it. It is great stuff here in Austin, Texas.
At this point, all it takes is a stumble. He's still under power, so that's a good sign as far as where they are. You see Reedy behind, trying to close the gap. He's got one more chance. He's going to slide it through here. Does he settle for second as we go through the final corner? It's not enough, and actually the
peels around.
He spins off the final corner. Austin Reedy's going to the line and win.
Austin Reedy gets win number 2. How did that happen? And this might be the win in hand. One more corner left. The 99 comes into turn 20, and for the 3rd time in season 5, Colin Forrester takes the checkered flag. The 99 wins at COTA.
What a drive out of that 99 car. He held on of one of the best road coursers in the league, and I'll tell you what, he held on for every single lap.
Well, that's just to show you how things are here at Circuit of the Americas and how crazy things have been the last 2 times that we were here. We did not run this track back in Season 6. We've only run this configuration with the next-gen cars in this series over seasons 4 and 5. So it's a pretty triumphant return. And for the bracket challenge context, these are the next 3 races. We talk about diversity. We've got COTA tonight is a road course. Then we go short track racing at the Monster Mile in Dover, Delaware. And then from there, we'll go to the other track in the Lone Star State, Texas Motor Speedway, a typical 1.5 miles, which has different banking in 1 and 2 versus 3 and 4. So Charlie, I think if you're in the bracket challenge, obviously it's a one and done single elimination style. So any hiccup that you have throughout this tenure could eliminate you from the entire tournament. But just to show what kind of diverse of tracks we have in this schedule and just how difficult it's going to be to rise to the top is just shown by the 3 tracks that we'll visit tonight and over the next several weeks.
3 of those tracks and Daytona, like I mentioned earlier, to cap it off. So this bracket challenge, it's been a lot of fun to keep track of so far. Circuit of the Americas is a track that you can say is an equalizer because of the no yellows and just the setting of a road course and track position that way. But the races after that are going to be intense.
It will be very fun as we go road course racing for just the 2nd time this season. Not the first road course race that we have here on the KBueno Racing Network. We're pretty used to seeing left and right hand turn racing with stock cars, which brings us to today's KBRN moment in time, a flashback 5 years ago to the iRacing Bundren Lawn Care Series from the Daytona road course. Welcome to today's KBRN Moments in Time. This moment belongs to the early days of the network's history with a 2020 race from the iRacing Bundren Lawn Care Series. Parker White and Nick Miller make their way 2x2 all the way down. We are green flag racing from the Daytona road course. This was the series' first trip to the road course in Daytona, where the storyline focused on which top driver could get the upper hand in the standings early at this discipline. The answer became clear very early on as Parker White opened up his lead in the first stint from the pole. A competition caution was set to fall at lap 20, so future playoff contenders Nick Miller and Cole Williams made their moves midway, while White managed to pit at the yellow flag. This Daytona road course tested many in the field, but White made it look easy, and when the curtains closed, White captured his first career series win, one that was long awaited. Gonna nail every single time again. He's nailed every single corner from here on out through this final lap and almost every other lap since the drop of the green flag down to the final chicane on the front stretch for the final time. Gonna smack the curbs and get off. Parker White will be a winner finally in the Bundren Lawn Care Series from Daytona Road Course. His first win in this series history. White's career accolades would shine much brighter than this moment did, but it still remains as a historic memory for us that will live forever. And that's today's KBRN Moments in Time. That's a very special moment in KBRN history. Charlie, you and I on the call for that Bundren Lawn Care Series race from the Daytona Road Course. The first win for Parker White. And just like we said in the Moment in Time video, it definitely doesn't shine as bright as everything he's accomplished in the years since then, but knowing the fact that we were able to cover a piece of greatness a couple years before it actually started manifesting itself in the higher levels of NASCAR is so cool. And I mean, going back to Bundren is always fun in those 2020 days, but that race is really, really special for us.
It's always fun. We've done a lot of streams for that series, and one of the many displays of talent out of Parker White that we've been able to capture, kind of in his upbringing through the iRating ranks in iRacing, and eventually lifting him beyond that on his own to the NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing stage. But yeah, we look back at Bundren Lawn Care Series with nothing but good memories, and that was a fun race to watch. That was his breakthrough race.
It was, and that's really when he solidified himself as a championship contender, because back then, the storyline was, when was Parker White going to get a win? I think the storyline now is, when is Parker White not going to win a race because of how good he's become over the last several years, and part of the small roster of Coke Series talent currently that we got a chance to cover on the KBueno Racing Network throughout our tenure. So I think it's super cool just to see where we found them in their sim racing journey and where they've gone since where they are right now. It's really, really fun. But let's focus back into what we are expected to see tonight. Road course Horse racing for the second time this year. This time we head to Austin, Texas, and a track that was born not that long ago. 2012 was when Circuit of the Americas opened to the public. This track in its Grand Prix configuration sits at 3.426 miles, a little over 5.5 kilometers, and with no banking, 20 turns, many of them very, very different. And we don't have an onboard lap to show you the scale and gravity of what this track is like to drive, but from what we've heard out of Francisco driving in the sim and plenty of the other drivers already in the server, it's hard. Very, very hard to drive.
And that elevation change in turn 1 is no joke. When you're going down the front straight and you're looking straight up at that, you can only imagine what that looks like in real life. We have a view of it here as well. So I think that's a really great element that they've been able to add into this track, and also the downhill, the S's. This track just has a whole lot that these drivers are going to be thrown at.
It is going to be great when we take on this road course in just several moments. That will do it for our coverage of the Drop in the Hammer pre-race show, but don't go anywhere. On the other side, coverage of race number 18 in the Season 7 4Wide Racing TJ's Team Series from Austin. You don't want to miss it.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
That's my bonus for my quota. Boy, don't nobody own. I just get a check. In the jail with the set, all we do is rap. Ain't worried about the next one. I'm just making plays, Broadway in the flesh. On us, this right here in the corner.
Near the regular season finale, there remains 3 more races for a field of hopefuls to make a playoff bid or make the pivot to missing the postseason, with a swing to the second road course race of the campaign that's lying in the heart of Texas. The KBueno Racing Network welcomes you to coverage of race number 18 in the Season 7 4-Wide Racing TJ's Team Series from Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas. We're glad you're joining us tonight, ready to make some shifts left and right. It's going to be a ton of fun. We're alongside Charlie Beyer in the broadcast booth. I'm Kenneth Bueno, and like we mentioned in our pre-race show just moments earlier, this tight race to the postseason is getting closer and closer, which means the drivers that are getting their last gasp of air for a postseason appearance is getting shorter and shorter. We come to COTA tonight with only one road course race under our belt this season. Tonight is set to be strapped for another great night.
And coming into the last 4 races, it is crunch time. These drivers need to put together good performances to either maintain a spot above the cutoff line, or if you're below, to really chip away and try to get yourself in. So with the last 4 tracks being very diverse, it's going to be a challenge for a lot of these guys, but it also could present opportunities coming up.
And as we head into these final 3 after this evening's race from COTA, well, those are the only chances left at making a playoff bid. We head to Dover after tonight, then Texas, then Daytona, and just like that, we enter our first playoff race of the season over on the west coast of the virtual Auto Club Speedway, and then we'll just chime them all down until we head down south to the virtual Homestead of Miami Speedway to close off the season. And while looking at the schedule, I just imagined that we were already at race 1 at Daytona, just how excited we were, and all of a sudden, just as fast as things have played out, we are in race 18 of the season. Things have transpired very quickly. We've had plenty of the storylines go around between KBueno Racing, Drinkin' Bros Racing, and many drivers in between as the drivers currently take qualifying here from this over 3-mile racetrack here in Austin, Texas, set to be a very, very fun one. And as we dive into this, Charlie, we have seen the top drivers of the sim in this series on road courses. Obviously, the mainstays, Brandon Hawkin, Lawson Peel, even a bit of drivers like Juan Escamilla, Ethan Fonseca Moreno, Kyle Benson, strong road course ringers, and many of them have already won road course races in their 4-wide careers. How would you think things will shape up tonight, given the context of the playoffs and the hunger that each driver will have?
Well, these drivers are going to be very defensive over their positions, not only because it is a road course and these very streamlined corners where the driving line is the most important part, but these guys are also just trying to click away at wins this season. You know, we're entering the back half of the season. I mean, what a title it is to have the most wins of the season. Brandon Hawkin is looking for his 4th to tie himself with Stephen Maggio. So I think the battles on the track tonight are going to be no short of exciting, especially between those big names that you've mentioned, Brandon Hawkin, Lawson Peel, and potentially Francisco Bacalhau, our very own, who's making his own start tonight.
And as we get into tonight's race, we of course have to note the big bracket challenge. This is what is going to be at stake. And for all of these drivers, if you do not have a race victory, getting a win in this bracket challenge means playoff points, and it will count towards playoff eligibility. So this is one of the last chances that drivers have at getting a de facto race win, even if they do not achieve a checkered flag this year. Plenty of good stuff in this round before we head to the quarterfinals at Dover Motor Speedway next week on March 19th at the short track. Lance Hill, Brandon Banks going head-to-head, Timothy Cook, AJ Green, Lawson Peel going up against Ryan Pandicio, Mikey Neal with Kyle Benson to face Austin Reedy, Curtis Kelly, Jaden Porter, Trevor Haley, then Eric Schaefer, Nicholas Bauman facing each other, Stephen Maggio, and Michael Newbraw set to go square off head-to-head in tonight's race from COTA. It's single elimination, so if you do make a mistake, you fall at least one spot short or more of the driver you're facing against at the checkered flag. Well, that's your bracket challenge over. You're going to be eliminated from possible playoff contention if you cannot find a win or some points on the way. We're in these final 2 minutes of qualifying, and Charlie, I think the danger lies in the Canadian Brandon Hawkin. He's won the last several road course races, all while leading a combined total of 152 laps. He's been the fastest driver over practice. Now qualifying, he's the biggest threat, the target to beat as we get into tonight's race.
I mean, I think he is the benchmark in the speed that you need to win this race, because we're going to see him jump out in front and possibly run away with this victory based on the practice times and his qualifying time alone. So it's going to be everyone chasing Brandon Hawken tonight. But if there's any drivers that would be able to do it and be able to actively compete with him, I see no other names than the top drivers in this 4-wide TJ's Team Series. So we're probably going to get a good battle tonight, especially off the jump and into that turn 1 hairpin up the hill.
And we have different winners over the history of 4-wide here in Austin, Texas. Only 2 races in 4-wide history have been run here, both with the next-gen cars in 2022 and in 2023, both in seasons 4 and 5. The first one, Austin Reedy barely beat Lawson Peel to the line after Peel struggled to get going off of turn 20. And then in season number 5, that's where Colin Forrester got his race victory at Circuit of the Americas. He's back in this race tonight. So is Peel, so is Reedy, but they have to face Brandon Hawken here at this track for the first time. And then Francisco Bacallao, who's been very fast at road courses, could be another threat down the line, possibly playing spoiler to those fighting for a playoff spot. So we're diving into those final seconds of qualifying, drivers just getting their final laps in, and we've seen a ton of drivers fast in practice, but the overarching theme, Charlie, is the track temperature, just how hot it is. It was as high as 135 degrees in the middle of practice time. Maybe has elevated, it probably has decreased, but nonetheless, according to Tyler Murray, this track is very, very difficult, and these cars are on ice around this Austin asphalt.
Well, you picked a place like Austin to build a racetrack, you're going to get a high track temperature and a high ambient temperature as well. And for a track where you need so much drive off and you need as much grip as possible when you're coming out of these hairpin corners, these guys are going to be on ice coming out of turn 1, the hairpin all the way at the other end of the racetrack. So it's going to be a lot for these guys to handle. They just need to settle in, not use up their tires too much, and put together a race of longevity here.
Track temperature has creeped down a bit now to 114, but I think now as we jump back in the session, there's where it changes. 135 degrees, 87 degrees in the overall ambient temperature here in Austin, Texas. This track is known to be very hot. This area of the United States is always scorching, so we will find ourselves with drivers trying to challenge themselves and getting their grip levels tuned in as this race develops over 35 that we will have tonight. Well, drivers have taken the racetrack right behind the iRacing official pace car. That means it's our time to give you the starting grid for tonight's race 18 of the 4-wide racing TJ's Team Series from Circuit of the Americas. We're on the pole. It's the Canadian Brandon Hawken, who has won the last 3 road course races, all coming from the pole position. He'll be on the inside of the front row. Hialeah's Francisco Bacallao, our tertiary member of the broadcast booth, joins us from behind the wheel this time. He'll be in second place when the field takes the green flag to turn 1. Lawson Peel has had these COTA races come very close to him, but he's yet to grab a win. He'll try to get revenge tonight from that 3rd starting spot. And Juan Escamilla, rookie standout, has been very fast over the practice and qualifying sessions. He lines up his Dark Horse Motorsports number 41 on the outside in position number 4. Canadian Curtis Kelly, standout in the points, yet with a race win this season. He'll be in 5th. Gabriel Dahari, the Iowa winner, making another start in the 4-wide career for him. He starts outside row number 3. Back in row 4 is where you'll find the rookie Dusty Applin in the 16 Chevrolet from 7th, and Jaden Porter, now the defending winner after winning at Pocono last week. He'll be in 8th at the drop of the green flag. Final 2 in your top 10, Ethan Fonseca Moreno has a number change and is back in the series from 9th place, and Kyle Benson, our feature from earlier on in the Drop in the Hammer pre-race show, looking for his first road course victory since the Charlotte Roval in Season 5. That wraps up the top 10.
Starting right outside the top 10, that number 14 All-Star Race winner, Nicholas Baumann, is starting 11th, and Colin Forrester, and that number 99 starts 12th. Jonathan Jurgensmeyer for KBueno Racing is going to be starting inside row number 7, and that number 70, and Rivers Jones, 14th, outside row number 7. Austin Reedy out of Townsend, Delaware, is going to be starting in 15th for Drinking Rose Racing. Lance Hill, 16th in row number 8. Row number 9, Tristan Bailey is going to be starting in 17th position. Craig Lounslogger is number 18th. And rounding out your top 20, that's Steven Maggio, 4-time race winner this season. And AJ Green, that number 48, he's going to round out your top 20.
You'll see the rest of the field scroll by on the bottom end of your screen. Notable names: Alexander Schumacher making his debut start in his 4-wide career. Trevor Haley, Eric Schaefer, bunch of big-time drivers mired back beneath the top 20. There's Mikey Neal back in 27th, and this lines up a 34-car field for tonight's race from COTA. Not often on the road courses do we see big-time fields, but tonight everybody wants to take their shot at this over 2- and 3-mile racetrack. So we mentioned the hot track temperature at 135 degrees. These drivers will deal with it for 35 laps total. That clocks in at a little under 120 miles and 193 kilometers total. We do have a competition caution set to wave at lap number 10, so the drivers will have a chance to reorganize and get themselves set right after this race begins, but the strategy kicks off from there, and it's all about who can master the road course as we take on COTA for the very first time. Brandon Hawken and Francisco Bacalhau will take us through the green flag for the first time this evening, and for the first time in a little over 2 years, we are racing from Circuit of the Americas, green flag from Austin, Texas. And trouble already. Kyle Benson turn around at the top end of turn 1. Bacalhau had overshot the first corner. Now Lawson Peel dives to the inside as they head for turn 3. Hawken up by a second.
Through these S's, they're going to be, these tires are going to get a load of that paint. You see Francisco Bacalhau, you get offline just a little bit, you're going to be surfing the paint there, and that's going to allow drivers behind you, like in Francisco Bacalhau's position. Lawson Peel is now setting him up for an overtake into the hairpin.
They got wobbly there off of turn 2. Bacalhau did not imagine Peel would try to strike. And a look at the inside, now he's here up the hill looking for turn 10. This is one of the first hard-braking zones past turn 1 as they go way wide off the rumble strip. The hard-braking turn 11. You can make up a ton of track position if you get on the brakes in enough time. Bacalhau is there to the inside. Curtis Kelly and Juan Escamilla playing a bit of hide-and-seek right behind them, making sure they can get a good look at this fight for second, while Hawken has extended his gap to nearly 3 seconds as they get down the long back straightaway for the first time.
Yeah, and this is no racetrack like Watkins Glen or Sonoma where the dirt or the grass can serve as their own track limits, which can punish you for any mistakes. These tracks have pavement all around the outside of the racetrack and paint. So for a track that's purpose-built for Formula One, when you put a stock car on here, they're going to use that a lot. We saw that with the NASCAR Cup Series in real life and their divisional series, and IndyCar, who, like these guys are doing right now, have just been using all of the paint on the exit.
It's the site of Colton Herta's first IndyCar win way back when here at Circuit of the Americas, but IndyCar hasn't run here in a couple of years' time, so it's been a while since we've seen open-wheel cars here at COTA on the American side of things. And for NASCAR, they shortened their layout this year, so instead of running the way S's that take you all the way to turn 11 in that long back straightaway hairpin corner, instead you're just going up to the near end of the initial S's, and then you're taking a left-hand corner turn, and then you're going all the way back around. Bacalhau goes for a spin off turn 20, gets a hit from Juan Escamilla, and Bacalhau's night has turned sour quickly, and we're not even a lap complete.
Yeah, and he's had a dry spell in plenty of leagues recently here and Slide Job Racing Series where he just can't put a race together, unfortunately. He's going to go around in the last corner of the race. We're going to see what happens here. He was in a tight battle and maybe just got a little bit too much drive from the rears.
Car just stepped out there. Not sure if it had been lost by the apex of the corner, but in a tense, Francisco Bacalhau drops all the way back through the field, and he has plummeted all the way to 20th place as Brandon Banks and Mikey Neal take position right in front of him. So all of a sudden, things change dramatically for Bacalhau, who has not found success in his several starts here in 4-wide this season, and it looks like the bad luck continues for the highly native as here's the battle for inside of the top 5. That's Juan Escamilla, who got the front end nose damage by hitting Bacalhau with nowhere to go off turn 20. And right behind him, a pair of Chevrolets, Dusty Applin and Ethan Fonseca Moreno, trying to take away 5th.
A couple of rookies up here in this top 10 trying to fight for the battle. Behind them is a car with my name on it. Who knows how much horsepower that's adding or taking away. I'm not going to take responsibility for that though. But yeah, Juan Escamilla currently 5th and Dusty Applin in 6th. We're going to see that front end damage could have a little bit of straightaway disadvantage, actually, given the long straightaways, or the long straightaway on the backstretch.
And here's a look down that back straightaway where Dusty Applin is peeking a move at the inside. It appears it may be successful. That was a look with your Charlie Byer Photography onboard camera. Maybe not the best selected driver to have that when we have a CBP sponsored car a couple of car lengths behind, but nonetheless, Moreno is back into things. It's been a bit of a sporadic season for Moreno, who had his work schedule cut into the middle of 4 wide time, so unfortunately has not been able to make as many starts as we would like to see him in this series. But right behind him, Colin Forrester and Jaden Porter, a pair of drivers who have found success in many different ways. Forrester has won a race here at COTA. He returns for the first time since Charlotte, where he crashed on a restart. And then Jaden Porter, who won the last race of the season at Pocono, has been on fire as of late, winning 2 races in 2025. And this is where things get really fun, Charlie, because you look at the battle for first, obviously non-existent because Brandon is nearly 4 seconds away from Lawson Peel. Things sort of string out from third on back, but here in the midst of this top 5 and latter half of top 10 battle, you get a ton of parity between guys that have different skill levels at the road courses, and plenty of them already doing battle in these first 3 laps.
That's the beauty of road courses, is the battle could be inside the top 5 or it could be outside the top 20, but either way it's still going to be competitive and it's still going to be fun to watch, just given how much fun these road courses are, not only for spectators but for these drivers. So I do see a little bit of punch in the front end of that 41, but it looks to have no effect on him as of right now.
He continues to patrol okay. I think he's looking for lap 10 to be that saving grace to get a piece of that damage fixed on his Ford Mustang Dark Horse. Still a long way to go, though, from COTA, and seems like he is just fine given the track position that he's in, P5. This is the battle for third, settling right behind Columbus, Mississippi's Lawson Peel. That is the Rothesay native of Canada, Curtis Kelly, who has been very consistent points-wise, has yet to find a win this year, but in that toe-to-toe fight with the Iowa winner, Gabriel Dahari, right behind. And this gap may be a couple car lengths long, but Dahari had just creeped up. Look at how squirrely he gets down this hard braking zone off turn 11. That's turn 12. And then you enter the stadium section, as I would call it, Charlie, the worst section of COTA, in my opinion, as a race car driver, trying it in the sim, but it's a very difficult set of corners, especially up here where you got to get a double left in, one that's a very tight radius. You got to be hard on the brakes, get this car stopped and turned at the same time. And you're seeing the magic of what this track is offering to the drivers challenge-wise over the first several laps in this battle with Kelly and Dahari.
I just want to confirm that for our audience, Kenneth was talking very poorly about this section of the racetrack, especially that last corner where they were just going through. That's an oddly shaped corner, not only for these stock cars, but just racetracks in general. You don't really see that kind of on the American side, really anywhere else at a racetrack like Watkins Sonoma, that just really consists of right-hand corners and a lot of sweeping corners. So it's definitely interesting for these Cup cars to navigate, and we got a big stack up come here down the front straightaway.
This car, especially given the track temp offered tonight, it is a handful, and in these corners where you have to brake and more often than not start turning while you're getting the brake dialed in, it is so difficult to find this car planted on the racetrack. And with the less downforce you have on the underbody of the race car, it's even harder to get this 3,400-pound stock machine planted on this racetrack. As there's Moreno making the move around. Applin sliding through the S's, though, and these guys were fighting tooth and nail off turn 20. Escamilla playing some great defense and getting the pressure alleviated off the back end of his Ford Mustang. Meanwhile, Dusty Applin got a piece of Ethan Fonseca Moreno off the final corner and wants a little bit of payback as they head up the hill to turn 11. Very fast left-hander that goes into the hard braking zone. Applin, though, not with the preferred exit speed that he would like. And now here comes the Jacksonville, Florida native, Colin Forrester, peeking potentially to the inside.
Well, if you use somebody up just a little bit on a road course or really any racetrack, the objective is to hit the gas and go as far as you can. Don't make any mistakes because they're going to use it against you once they get back to you. But for Dusty Applin, a little bit of lockup out of that corner, and now he's side by side.
So Forrester will turn to the hard braking zone next turn 12. As Moreno finds a bit of elbow room, can now extend his gap comfortably. And Applin will have to just watch as Forrester makes the move to the inside. Applin potentially eyeing the crossover here, very hard braking zone as well, to this right-hander. But Applin, no response, as this battle goes all the way back to 11th place Austin Reedy, that red and white Flow Racing machine. A Delaware native was only a handful of points above, or below the cut line rather, before Brandon Banks in the top 15 just last week at Pocono. But like we saw in the race highlights, Charlie was in 3rd place at the white flag lap, had the frustrations boil over, sent it deep into turn 3, hit Francisco Bacalhau, and they both careened into the wall hard, creating a massive pileup at the exit of the corner. At the result of that, race control decided to take a look at all the incidents. They dealt Reedy a 4-race probation for tonight's race, and so he will be under a keen eye from the admins on whether he gets up to any antics tonight. But when you look at an opportunity that just was lost in that white flag lap, where it looked like if a 3rd or 2nd place finish came his way, he would have been nicely into the top 15 for the playoff standings. Now he has to do a little more work. He is 20 points off of Brandon Banks' 15th spot.
Well, it's going to be on his best behavior for the next 4 races, but when an opportunity presents itself, when you're below the playoff cutoff line, you're going to do whatever it takes. So Austin Reed certainly is going to do whatever it takes to make himself a playoff eligible driver in terms of points. But he's in a pretty good spot right now, sitting inside the top 10. He can stay consistent and walk away with a pretty good points day.
And he started tonight with an end-of-line penalty from race control. He was one of 3 drivers that had end-of-lines or drive-throughs to begin this race. That list includes Eric Schaefer and Jesse Priest for some actions that they have taken earlier in the campaign. So Reedy has had to make the jump quickly from the back end of the field to now the just entry of the top 10. Here's a nice battle building up for 15th on. Back there is the Pennsylvania native of Kyle Benson fighting hard against AJ Green and the rookie Duncan Fall in a Toyota Camry tonight, apart from his usual Chevrolet look for Duncan Creative and Fall Creative. And there comes Duncan, dive to the inside in turn 11, near contact between himself and AJ Green, but they keep things sorted. And remember, Charlie, Benson had been involved in that opening lap scuffle at the uphill section, turn 1, got spun around and lost all that track position, but he's done a solid job of getting his feet planted into the ground and now settling into 15th.
Pretty good. This is now can turn into kind of a recovery race for Kyle Benson. I'd say he's kind of just racing towards that competition caution to get a fresh set of tires, but it's a pretty good rebound drive as of right now. That spin certainly wasn't indicative of his speed and his track position after that, so he's going to have a race of recovery, but it's looking pretty good for him right now.
And Benson has performed well at the road courses in his career. We talked about that road course victory that he harnessed at the Charlotte Roval back in Season 5. That was a playoff race that got him an entry into the next round, but ever since, we have not seen Benson win in the next-gen car. His last win that we talked about was at Daytona with the Xfinity Series machines, but you have to go ways back to find a proper oval win, and you do got to go a little bit ways to find that last road course win that we mentioned. So Benson still eyeing down checkered flag number 1 of the year, but remember last season had gone so far, finished 3rd in the championship points behind Moreno and Peel, was not mathematically eligible by the time we got to the end of that Homestead race, but going in, he desperately needed a good run, but he did have a mathematical shot at the championship despite only having 1 win. Here in the playoff system, though, like he told me earlier on this afternoon, this playoff system is all about wins, so he's just got to keep his head on a swivel, keep himself locked in and loaded for these final several races, and just keep at it, because when the playoffs come, he says that's when the real season starts, as he hunts down Nicholas Baumann. That's for 14th place. Things start to amp up a little bit intensity-wise, but for the most part, Charlie, we're seeing the discrepancy of pace between these drivers, and that goes all the way to the race leader, Brandon Hawken, who's now 4.8 seconds over Lawson Peel back in second. Look at this shot, a long ways down this back straightaway.
Checked out and gone is that number 98 of Brandon Hawken. But as we approach this competition caution, Kenneth, you know, these guys are going to be looking for opportunities to do anything they can to try to take that race lead or improve that position. So I wouldn't doubt that as this run kind of stretches, people show their raw speed and get to their actual spots where, in terms of speed, that they will fall into. We're going to get to this competition caution, and we're going to have a guy like Lawson Peel starting next to Brandon Hawken this time and possibly try and make a move and defend it for his life, which is what you're going to need to do. Another driver that's also on a recovery drive is sitting in 14th right now, I believe, or around there. That's Francisco Bacalhau, who spun around off the final corner, but once again, much like Kyle Benson, he's putting together a drive to finish strong. And
there's our Charlie Bayer photography onboard camera with the Hialeah native as he pounces in on 12th place. That's Steven Maggio, his fellow teammate for KBueno Racing. But you're right, he has been on a bit of a recovery drive, and I think if anyone is in the midst of the top 15 or a bit of the top 20, they're probably looking at that pit stop right before the pits close in the precipice of this competition caution at lap 10. But is there a sweet spot, Charlie? Because obviously this track is as big as it is. You know, distance covers widely here at Circuit of the Americas, and even more so when the field is as spread out as it is. Is there a sweet spot lap to hit on this strategy?
I'm not understanding your question, Kenneth, but I do think that settling in is the important part of this, and I guess you have to repeat your question to understand it. But settling in is it's a big part of this race.
I meant more so, is there a sweet spot lap to hit right before lap 10? Would you look at lap 8, 9, maybe now at lap 7? What seems to be the right spot to come into pit road and then gain that track position once the yellow flies? That's more so what I meant.
Yeah, so for strategy, I do think that coming in a lap before the competition caution, as drivers do in real life in terms of a stage yellow, to set yourself up after, that brings in a whole element of strategy that these guys could be doing to put themselves in a good spot. So, I mean, if Brandon Hawken isn't coming in, why not? Or a driver ahead of you or up front isn't coming in early before that yellow, why not come in, take a fresh set of Goodyear tires? That could put you in a great spot coming to the green flag.
We saw back at Watkins Glen just how much strategy mattered, particularly in that final run where, you know, over those laps, guys had to figure out when was the right time to come in, given their battles or specific situations. And for Hawken, it was mostly a cakewalk, was able to stay up front without any big problems, but the fight for second was very fiery. For spots inside the top 5, things went down to the checkered flag. I mean, you're driving Moreno here, you're looking at him from 5th place. He was in one of those battles with Juan Escamilla in the run-up to the checkered flag behind the race winner in Hawken in those final laps. So things can really change, particularly over the last stint, but you got to set yourself up nicely with the competition caution that will set to fly in about 2.5 or 3 laps as Colin Forrester going deep diving into the stadium section, trying to get right to the inside of Moreno. But for these final several corners, Moreno will have the upper hand, shorter line around the racetrack. He'll beat Forrester to turn 19. Does the Florida native have a response? Yes, he does. Inside look, turn 20. Colin Forrester has 5th.
Takes that 5th spot inside the top 5. Francisco is going to try to get that drive off to maybe peek inside. This could be a move that happens at the turn number 1. Lawson Peel is taking that strategy elect, and he's coming down to pit road.
Looks like the sweet spot for him is lap number 8, so all by himself in second. Peel decides this is his time to head down pit road. He'll cut it a little bit earlier. Watch Dahari getting a piece of the 71 car, Curtis Kelly, as they ran off turn 2. Kelly is not happy with that incident, just gets right to the rear bumper of Dahari's Chevrolet, and these guys are absolutely brawling for now second place as they head through the S's.
If you're going to use somebody up, you got to hit the gas and go, because they're going to try to do the same exact thing to you a couple corners later. This actually could have been an incident that may have started, or at least a few that could have started in turn number 1. Let's take a look.
Well, this is off turn 1. Turn 2, Dahari goes in and nearly sideswipes Curtis Kelly. They make the contact. None of them go sideways, but through the S's, Kelly just shows off how not happy he is and just sends a square hit to the rear bumper of Dahari's Chevrolet. And this fight continues. Dahari still the upper hand driver in P2, and they are merely 18.5 seconds behind the race leader in Brandon Hawken. Now we talk about that one pit stop by Lawson Peel. I don't believe anyone else, Fred or Charlie, has come down pit road at this juncture of the race, so everyone has stayed out all of these 8 laps. I mean, is it a good call? Do you agree with this by Lawson to come in this early?
I do agree with the call to come in early before the competition yellow. I think Lawson's thought process could have been to kind of jump that and make sure that nobody else short pits him. That way he is the driver who potentially would be on the best strategy. But if everyone else goes in, then they're going to have 1 lap fresher tires than Lawson. So it's going to be something that we're going to have to see plays out. But I think it's a safe bet to assume that jumping it and nursing the tires specifically, which kind of looks like that he's doing right now, for this restart is going to be the strategy that he tries to pull.
Well, Peel, remember, has had this track elude him over the last several years. That second place finish in season 4 and then followed up by another runner-up finish in 2023 behind Colin Forrester. And in that last COTA race, he'd only led 1 lap before sticking behind Forrester and trying to chase him down on those final laps before Forrester walked away with that checkered flag. So this is a place that Peel has been really wanting to win at, especially given his road course resume in the series, in which he's won at many other road courses in the season and has led plenty of laps in his road course tenure. So with this alternate call, just trying to stretch his hand out the window and try something different for the moment. He is about the only driver to come down pit road over these first 9. Look at the gaggle of cars that is building up behind Gabriel Dahari. Something transpired in the fight for second. Curtis Kelly beat Dahari either by a mistake or by some contact, and now Colin Forster is deep in the ocean. Moreno, Porter, Escamilla, Applin, and this fight goes all the way down to River Jones in 10th.
And it's pretty satisfying watching that train of cars circle through the S's all together. We see a move coming into this corner, not exactly a passing corner, but these drivers are gonna try to make this work and try to grab every position possible before this competition caution. But man, this group tightened up really quick.
Yeah, it's awesome to see, and I want to go see what happened between Dahari and Kelly, because I mean, they were fighting very hard and they were losing a ton of time, yes, but they had a decent gap back to these guys fighting for third on back. And as you ride on board with Jaden Porter Chevrolet, you get a good look at what's going on up the road between Moreno and Forrester. That continuous fight for fourth builds up. And then Dahari's Chevrolet right behind Kelly's Toyota that is just now entering turn 12. Here comes Moreno, another look to the inside, this time just barely getting to the rear bumper. And this is exciting stuff, Charlie, because no one can find an edge right now. Everyone is on pins and needles just trying to get around each other. And now KBueno Racing, 2 of these cars in the top 10. Porter trying to move a little bit forward, but not trying to overstep his teammate on the route.
Yeah, Moreno and Forrester have been battling all race long. Who knows if they're going to walk away with a handshake or not after the way they've been battling, but it seems that the leader's taking the checkered flag. We're under our competition caution on lap number 10.
And there is the comp yellow. Pace car is out, uphill to turn 1. And Brandon Hawken will nearly get to a full stop as he waits for the pace car to get around. He has led every single lap since the jump. Curtis Kelly second, Gabriel Dahari to round out the top 3. Great fights for the mid-pack position. And Lawson Peel's attempt to come down pit road has resulted him in 14th at the time of this comp yellow. And basically no one else has come down pit road over the first 10. So, Charlie, it looks like Peel will have the track position at the cost of a little less fuel than everybody else, but every driver here will have a chance to come in under more calm conditions, as it will take a little bit of a while before Curtis Kelly and company will catch up.
It's going to take a while. Yeah, but there's no doubt that these drivers are all going to come down and get 4 fresh Goodyear tires. So Lawson Peel will jump ahead to the race lead here, and more importantly, have control of this restart. So I'm actually pretty excited to see how this plays out. But is the tire difference of 2 laps, Kenneth? Do you think that's too much for him?
I don't know if it'll be a big difference here if Lawson did take tires, because as we see it appears he didn't spend that much time in the pit lane. So either that's ATVO kind of bugging out on us, or it was a 4-tire stop as we saw. I don't think it would be a big discrepancy. I mean, in the next-gen cars, the tires don't necessarily wear off as much as you'd think they will. At the ovals, they matter a ton, especially those abrasive ovals. But at the road courses, I don't know if it'll play a big difference, and I think Lawson may be able to stay where he's at in the race lead. And with control of the restart, as long as Hawken doesn't send a big dive into turn 1, I think Peel will be mostly okay. I think I'm a little bit surprised that Hawken didn't come down pit road earlier, but he's had the race lead comfortably. Maybe just not the decision to come in when he has a gap that large to the driver back in second place. We'll take a moment to dial things up with our Keelan's keys to the race. Keelan Bosha is not with us tonight in the broadcast booth. He is dealing with a sore throat and a bit of congestion, so we wish the best for Keelan as he tries to recover from potentially a cold. But here are the keys that he gave us earlier in the afternoon. Be consistent is the first one. You don't want to be making mistakes here at a road course. It costs you so much time and will cost you track position. Turn 1 problems, avoid them. We've already seen it in the opening lap with Kyle Benson getting turned around at the opening lap. Then hit the right strategy is what we're watching right now, and take advantage of the competition caution that we're in as of the moment. And he's told the drivers, Charlie, please listen to my keys. Please watch the broadcast and look at my keys. I think these are pretty good for tonight.
I think they are pretty good tonight. It's a good summary of just COTA as a whole and what this race is going to bring these drivers. So, yeah, the pace laps here are going to take quite a bit. There's a reason why iRacing doesn't have a whole lot of yellow flags on road courses, because we're going to be pacing for quite a bit here. But it's a good opportunity for these guys to warm these tires that they could possibly be getting here.
Yeah, it will take a minute before they come down pit road. and they're just entering this stadium section, which goes from turn 12 all the way to 19. And then you find yourself exiting at turn 20 near the Whataburger logo, and then you end up right at the front straightaway, and that's where the merge and pit entry lane is on the left-hand side. So under green, you see drivers go wide off turn 19, and they have to make that sharp cut left to make it to pit road while braking at the same time. And there is a barrier there before you reach pit road speed limit and the cone, so you can take it at a pretty high rate of speed, but we've seen drivers make mistakes there before and hit the wall on the outside. It's sort of similar to that pit road exit stretch at the Daytona Road Course where you're on that pit road exit line and you're going kind of fast off of the pit road speed limiter, and then you could find yourself in that outside wall if you get a little bit too eager, but everyone comes in under pacing, and now it's the decision time. Who decides 2 or 4 fresh Goodyear Eagles? I'm assuming here, Charlie, we're going to have everybody have the same call, but look at everybody bottlenecking to the pit road entry.
I think Brandon Hawken may have slowed down, trying to get people mixed up a little bit, and that's resulted in at least a 3-car gap coming to the pit lane, possible damage for the cars behind. Speaking of damage, what I'm also wondering here is Curtis Kelly, who gave Gabriel Dahari a really big shot. Oh, almost, it looks like Brandon Hawken made it into his pit stall, but for the drivers that did pick up damage, how much time are they going to spend extra time, that is, to get that repaired before they come out?
That's a good question because, Juan Escamilla found damage earlier on after hitting Francisco Bacallao. Kelly and Dahari picking up damage, and I think the answer is clear here between those 2 cars behind Hawkins Chevrolet. They're not wasting the time to get that car repaired. They're going to keep it going. It's not structural damage to the race car that will hamper them all too much, so they will stay out as of right now. But there are more cars remaining on this track that are not Lawson Peel, so we imagine that Peel would be the only driver behind the pace car. But Murray Reedy Motorsports is deciding to gamble here at lap 11. Austin Reedy, Kyle Benson, and Craig Lounslager all staying out. They have not hit pit road tonight.
Well, although this is a competition yellow and it's going to reset the field, this isn't going to be the last pit stop of this race. We're looking at about an 18-lap fuel run. I'm not on the pit road today. I'm not on the pit road today for you, but I will certainly bring the strategy and the news. But we're probably going to have one more pit stop before we do go all the way to the end of this race. So potentially an inverse strategy coming out of the Drinking Bros Racing drivers.
Yeah, it looks like Murray Reedy Motorsports is trying to cut this into a one-stopper past halfway because, you mentioned it, 18-lap fuel run. This is a 35-lap race. You can make it on one stop if you pit exactly halfway. So I think this is what Murray Reedy Motorsports thinks will give them the advantage here. Specifically for Reedy, who we mentioned is buried deep beneath the cut line, 20 points off of the 15th spotted car. And then Kyle Benson, who is hungry for a win, has struggled a bit after getting turned in turn 1 on the opening lap of the race. And then Craig Lounslager, who's been a little quiet tonight, albeit, but, Lounslager has made championship 5s before. He has excelled in the playoff format over the last several years in 4-wide history. And Lounslager has been in a situation where he can strike iron when it's hot and get on fire at the right time. So Lounslager decides to join his teammates on the strategy behind Lawson Peel. His last top 10 came at Nashville Superspeedway in late February, where he finished in 8th and then ended up 23rd in the Pocono race last week. And I'm assuming, given the context of that final lap, probably involved in that last lap crash at some point. Charlie, it was a parking lot. And I tell you, a parking lot. As soon as Reedy and Bacallao careened off the wall, they came back down the racing surface and they got almost everybody in that crash. It was astronomical.
Yeah, the car came all the way across the racetrack and caused that track block. You don't want to see that for drivers who are easing their way to a checkered flag, maybe in that around that 10th position, to be caught in an egregious move like that. But fortunately, that's how it played out, and now these drivers are going to have to move on to this week and try and get as many points as they can. So track blockers are no stranger to road courses as well. Yeah. Coming into turn 1, we've seen in real life and plenty of disciplines that have come and visited this racetrack, and with 4 cars staying out and ahead of our race leaders, we could see some moves that could potentially put people in danger.
Yeah, we may see another dive bomb in turn 1, and as they're going 3 and 4 wide, that is going to spell a disaster of some kind, but we're not there yet. iRacing official pace car will give us the 1-to-go signal when we cross the line next, so we will be going a little while longer before we find our green flag restart. I think someone may have expired the engine, and I'm not entirely sure who that was. Just heard it a bit in the background. But back in the point to Craig Launslager to wrap things up. He is a native of the Lone Star State out of the city of Euless. So Launslager in a de facto home race tonight. If it's not the Texas Motor Speedway that we'll see in a couple weeks' time. Austin Reedy is your race leader. We head into the 1 to go for the iRacing official pace car. We'll head to Green Flag Racing from COTA in just several moments, but you are tuned in to race 18 of the 4Wide Racing TJ's Team Series from Austin, Texas. Don't go anywhere.
Dirt Racing 24 is available now.
Who wins the race? Kerwin! It is Benny Olot, the sophomore!
Tipsy the header, you catch me is something you'll never do. I turn around and I love you. No motivation is needed. Look, I put myself on the pedestal. This is incredible. This how it feels at the top. Got no incentive to stop. I give it all that I got.
And back live from the virtual Circuit of the Americas. Coverage of the 4Wide Racing TJ's Team Series is brought to you by iRacing. To get your sim racing career started today, get on to iRacing.com. By TJ's Team. To learn more about the Foundation's mission to end pediatric cancer, visit morethan-a-cape.org. And by Paul's Setup Shop. Welcome back to COTA. It's been a very fun one. Kenneth Bueno and Charlie Byer with you. Francisco Bacalhau out on the racetrack. I keep trying to get that sorted, but it's confusing me quite a bit. Brandon Hawken has led every single lap until now. 4 cars have stayed out under the competition caution waived at lap 10. 3 of them belonging to the Murray Reedy Motorsports camp of Austin Reedy, Kyle Benson, and Craig Launslager. Lawson Peel, who sits third on this green flag restart, is the only driver amongst them to actually hit pit road before the comp yellow flew at around lap 7 and 8. So everyone will try to take their hand at the strategy. Murray Reedy Motorsports appears to be going one stop until the end, trying to get the halfway mark completed at lap number 18 of this 35-lapper. It's been a ton of fun, great battles across the top 10, though no one has been able to stop the Canadian Brandon Hawken, who's searching for his 4th consecutive road course win in the series. Pace car makes the left turn, to the entry of turn 20, and it's a pair of Ford Mustangs that will bring us back to the action up the hill to turn 1, and there's already crashing right before we get to the restart. Ethan Fonseca Moreno, Colin Forster, and several others get involved. Mikey Neal is spun around as well, but race control throws the green. We're back underway from COTA.
Those drivers were trying to get back to the pacing double file to try and start with this group here. We're going to see a dive bomb. Brandon Hawken to the inside of Lawson Peel takes net first place back as we see Kyle Benson off the racetrack.
Kyle Benson nudged out of the racing surface. Some drivers nearly 3 and 4 wide. It's mayhem. We'll try to get a second look at what transpired off the final corner, and there's more trouble. AJ Green going hard into the barriers down low. I think he recovers his Chevrolet for the most part, rejoins the racing surface near the S's. But what is happening off this restart? And here comes Hawken looking for the race lead.
Hawken for the race lead. Lawson Peel is trying to stay as close as possible. They both get around that number 34. It's Lawson Peel car length behind, trying to set up a pass into the hairpin.
And there's another big crash. Lance Hill, AJ Green, Steven Maggio among those involved. The messes are compiling here in this opening lap off the restart, and everyone is still trying to get their bearings together. Look at this, nearly 4 wide coming down to turn 11.
This is not the restart that any of these guys wanted in a race where you just want to settle in and make as many safe moves as possible. But the opposite of safe is going on in this hairpin. We got more people around and making dive bombs.
And there goes Moreno, another spill down the hard braking zone as Forrester and AJ Green, the pair of Stonks Motorsports teammates, went all for it down the corner, and it just stacked everybody up. Moreno got a tad bit loose and spun around the race car. And I think that may be the end of Moreno's race tonight from COTA. Remember, him and Forster were fighting for top 5 territory earlier in this race. And now things have gone dramatically sour for the pair of cars. And now Curtis Kelly spun around. Dahari giving him a shot in turn 12.
It's Curtis Kelly and Gabriel Dahari coming together again, this time inside of the top 5, a little bit further back, though. We got another spinner in the back. We're going to take a look and see what happened here with between the 72 and 71.
We're going to go one by one here. There are a lot of incidents to cover. This is Dahari diving right into the back bumper of Kelly's Toyota. Remember, they had a bit of drama off turn 1 earlier before the comp yellow came out. Kelly gave Dahari a shot to the rear bumper, and then there's Tyler Murray going sideways by himself off the corner. And we're going to try to get another look at what transpired near turn 20, because it was absolute pandemonium before we even got to the green flag. Charlie, I don't know what happened, if someone got loose or if there was contact right before the green came out, if somebody was displeased with another driver. I don't know, but this entire lap was a nightmare for the Charlie Bayer Photography Chevrolet of Moreno. And down turn 20, this is where it all begins.
And for all we know, I mean, it could be both people being aggressive and people getting a little bit of revenge on each other. But hey, how about this strategy from these Murray Reedy Motorsports drivers who started 1 and 2 on this restart? As you see early on, it just a little bit of too much drive off the corner, clip that number 92, and set him around. Same with Francisco Bacariel, Colin Forster being sent all the way to the back. But like I said, how about this strategy from the 2 Murray Reedy Motorsports drivers, Austin Reedy and Kyle Benson, starting up front? They avoided all of this action behind them, and now they're sitting comfortably inside the top 5.
Yeah, they've been doing a good job, and they're not losing that much pace to the rest of the field above, or behind them rather, that came down under the competition caution. So if that's any indicator, Charlie, it's that the fresh tires don't really matter that much. I mean, Lawson has jumped up to 2nd, but he was in P2 before he came down pit road on lap 7. It's not a surprise to see him on a podium spot, but to see Reedy, Benson, and Launslager hold on to 3rd, 4th, and 5th without any interference from Dahari and company that, in this case, are on fresh rubber, it's a good sign for the trio of Ford Mustang dark horses to understand that their discrepancy on tires and fuel doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. They can make this strategy work, but remember, they are going to a one-stopper, as we are assuming so. So lap 18 is their marker to come down pit road, and the real question is, how are they going to recover over a long green flag run? They understand that everyone's going to have to come down after them, but it's a matter of distance, it's a matter of speed, and how they're able to properly recover when they come out to turn 1 right after their pit road stop. So it's a good point, Charlie. These Ford Mustangs from Murray Reedy Motorsports, great call to have top 5 position.
Yeah, they're sitting. They're also not losing that much either, so they're in a really good spot for in terms of tire strategy, because they're going to be sitting on fresher tires and making up a whole bunch of time while these guys are running to their all the other drivers are running to their pit stop to get them to the end. So yeah, I'm impressed with these three Murray Reedy Motorsports drivers. It's currently sitting 3rd, 4th, and 5th.
Here's the onboard look from the Delaware native of Reedy, having his teammate from Pennsylvania chase him down. And while talking with Kyle Benson earlier on this evening, he told me that he hasn't had the chance to meet up with Tyler yet. He has gotten some opportunities to meet up with the league owner of the series, but they have been very close for many years on end as this series has grown over the last couple years through the pandemic and through these last two specifically that have exponentially grown the series in number and in competition. But he says he's thinking about it. He wants there to be a moment for him to go up, meet up with the likes of Austin Reedy, of Tyler Murray, Craig Lounslager, all of these guys that live in very different areas across the U.S. I know Reedy and Murray are at least near each other. They're in the Delaware area, and they have met before. And Murray has met the Drinkin' Bros Racing team for the most part. A lot of them are in the southeast, so really cool to see the human-human interaction, all of them meeting up at the NASCAR tracks across the country. I know you and I, Charlie, we met at Homestead way back when in 2019, and then we met again in Daytona. And I think we're still planning a group friend trip, hopefully to Bristol. Is that still happening?
That'd be a lot of fun. Yeah, it's always special when, you meet people through, the internet, and especially iRacing, and you wouldn't typically meet these people. I wouldn't expect to meet anybody living in Miami, Florida. No offense to you, but
okay.
That's just
all right.
I'm not going to Miami, Florida that often. So it's always special when you meet someone who comes from a different place and experiences a lot of different things to you, but you have so much in common that you just become friends and bond over something like NASCAR. So yeah, me and Francisco actually met together. You and Francisco had met before, but I had met you and him in 2019 Homestead. Then we all went to the Daytona 500 together in 2022. And yeah, I'm certainly down to go to Bristol, especially if the likes of you and many of our other online friends are there as well.
It's funny because when Francisco and I met online, we had no idea, obviously, where each other lived. We wouldn't divulge that information at the ages that we were, in our teens. We probably weren't going to give out where we lived immediately to our friends online. But then when we found out, after we met at Homestead, we're like, oh, we live 15 minutes away from each other. I could go drive to his house. He could go drive to mine, and it's literally like right there. So, it's funny to see sometimes the similarity or the proximity that you have with other online friends if it lines up that way. But, the human interaction here in 4Wide, very heavy, and with the connections these guys have built with each other over the last several years, very important. And Kyle said that Tyler is someone that he sort of looks up to in a sense, and somebody who's been his best friend for many years. So it's awesome to see the connection between them two. They're both teammates at Murray Reedy Motorsports, trying to make sense of this COTA race that has been all over the place as we enter the final 20 here from Austin, Texas. Watch Colin Forrester in the top 15. There's Curtis Kelly just entering the top 10. And we noted the fact that he did not come down pit road for damage repair, only for the service that he acquired on his Toyota Camry. Inside look on the Dark Horse Motorsports Ford of Nicholas Baumann, way wide in turn 12. And there's his teammate, Juan Escamilla, who did pick up some damage repair and squared off the front nose of his Ford Mustang. So he's back into perfect condition as he tries to step once again into the top 10. Escamilla very fast in the practice sessions earlier on tonight, and the Indianapolis native who goes to the Purdue University in Indianapolis, a college student, a Boilermaker, going to try to get into the top 10.
I mean, you can't get more Indiana than that, being an engineering major who goes to Purdue. So, but, he's, that damage is certainly repaired. I don't see a scratch on that front bumper. So came down pit road, got that all fixed, and is currently, like you said, trying to poke his way back into the top 5 at least.
Here's a look with Dusty Applin, fellow Chevrolet right behind, made his debut in the Drop in the Hammer Cup series a couple of weeks ago, another series you'll find here on the KBueno Racing Network YouTube channel, and did pretty well at the Road America track that they visited last Sunday. So Applin, a pretty formidable road course ringer with these stock cars, and currently a top 10 brewing for the rookies. So really good stuff out of Applin, trying to chase down that Escamilla Ford that still is on the back bumper, hounding on Curtis Kelly's Toyota. So all of these single file cars brewed a really good battle earlier on before that competition caution came out. So should see a similar product in this final stint within 19 laps to go. And here comes Escamilla, another look down low, this time very solid line. Kelly will have the response. He'll have the inside line this time, but up the hill, a bit of contact as they go up to turn 11, and Escamilla bullies his way into the spot, P8.
And for corners that aren't particularly passing corners and you have to force yourself to go side by side, maybe use them up a little bit to try and get that spot. That's certainly what happened there. And, Juan Escamilla is certainly dealing with the effects of him pushing people around as Curtis Kelly's now side by side. A little bit of side rubbing down the straightaway.
Trying to side draft each other, and I think Dusty Applin is looking for 3 wide. Indeed, they will be. Bottom end of turn 12. Applin is there. He'll peek out just as the moment arises, and Kelly will have the preferred spot. But Escamilla is not done fighting yet. Switch over to the outside, looking for the crossover. Applin is there, and into the stadium section. Escamilla is sideways. They make contact up the hill.
Using as much drive as he can off of these corners. This side-by-side battle is going to stack these cars up like we saw that line of cars on that last fuel run. We got about 6 or 7 cars that are now going to be all toe-to-toe coming into this stadium section, long sweeping corners that are really going to have to set you up for the 2 corners preceding the front straightaway.
And into turn 19, Escamilla has a nose inward. They bang and make contact into the corner. Escamilla will have the spot, but he nudges Kelly out of the way. And Kelly wants revenge, sends Escamilla through turn 20, and there goes all of their track position with it.
Sends Escamilla and himself there, and these guys are now going to be tumbling down the running order. Jaden Porter might have caught a piece of that as well, as he's now falling behind this group. That was a send if I've ever seen one.
This almost looked like Ross Chastain, Alex Bowman back in 22 through the same corner and just bouncing off each other through turn 19, and Kelly, who has already had the frustrations boil over with Gabriel Dahari. Yeah, didn't want any part of Escamilla's antics there and just sends him fully into 20. He says, if I'm losing track position by a move like that, I'm going to do the same to you. And then Porter also, I think, just got loose off the final corner. And there's Francisco Bacallao there to pick up the pieces. He's now stepped up into 11th. So Kelly, not necessarily pleased with the action tonight from COTA. 2 separate incidents with 2 separate drivers.
Yeah, not necessarily a line that you would prefer to take in that corner, going straight on and on a trajectory to make the corner straight into a back bumper of somebody else. But hey, frustrations are going to be dealt. This is a tight racetrack, and you have to really use up other cars in order to make these passes, especially with a stock car at a track like this. So I certainly can't blame the 2 drivers for racing each other hard, but that's unfortunately what transpired, and the effects turned into both these drivers tumbling down the running order.
Kelly's still in a fight for 12th. This is the onboard look from Jaden Porter, the Louisville, Kentucky native. And diving into turn 12, that's his teammate Bacallao right in front. And remember, the trail of cars that starts up the road, this time with Jonathan Jurgensmeyer, who is now moved up into 8th. So lots of tussling through this field, lots of drama. Porter trying to make Kelly not another enemy on today's list. And so he backs out. Kelly will get the spot, and he'll step into 12th. As they head through the stadium section past turn 13. I don't know if Escamilla wants a bit of payback to Kelly's rear bumper once he gets back to him. They are similar in pace enough to be in the same spot, but it will take a little bit more time until we find those 2 nose to tail on the racetrack once again. So as Brandon Hawken continues to lead this race, he's opened up his gap slower than usual. We saw him up by nearly 5 seconds over the first 3 laps, and through this opening stint past the competition caution, Hawken is now just getting to 5 seconds above Lawson Peel. So the 2 seem to be matching a little bit more pace-wise. Hawken's still the better driver over this long run, and he's been in cruise control ever since the drop of the green flag. The only moment that he's had to flinch was getting around the traffic that had stayed out past lap 10 with all of those Murray Reedy Motorsports Fords that now continue to sit 3rd, 4th, and 6th, with Kyle Benson leading the troop. But Hawken has been the best car over the night, and he continues to stamp on everyone else that he is the man to beat, particularly on these road courses. And speaking of road courses, Charlie, let's talk about the update that came out yesterday on the iRacing service. This is the first proper full day with the 2025 Season 2 update apart from the ARCA cars, which was a highly anticipated addition to the service, given the fact that the old car had been around since like 2010, and now the new ARCA cars are based off of what they look like in real life in 2025. But Portland International Raceway, new IndyCar and NASCAR venue being added to iRacing. I haven't tried it yet, but from what I've heard, it's a really, really fun track.
Yeah, and that's really one of the last pieces of American road course culture that iRacing is adding to the service. So a highly anticipated one for me as a race fan and as an IndyCar fan. Speaking of that as well, so that's a fun track to race at. Turn 1 is pretty busy on the wheel, and especially going into there with a pack. I think it would be a great addition for any stock car league on the service. I know another, speaking of new additions. A lot of redone tracks art-wise, and iRacing has done an incredible job with that, repaving the tracks and updating their art. I know a highly anticipated one for you, Kenneth, was Homestead Miami Speedway. You were all over that as well, so I'm sure that was a fun one to play around with.
Yeah, the list goes Homestead, Kansas, Las Vegas, Iowa, and Dover, and then Bristol. So that's the full list of tracks that got somewhat of a refresh. Yeah, I was super hyped to hear that Homestead was getting an art refresh, because for years we had the grass at the inside of the racetrack off turn 4 down that front straightaway as Francisco Bacalhau comes in for a pit stop inside 15 laps to go. So the strategy is just starting to kick in for those just inside the top 10, and that list does include the trio of Murray Reedy Motorsports cars that will pit past lap 18, so they will be good to go until the end. We had that grass on the front straightaway for so many years, and the track had been outdated for a long while. Then in 2021, they updated the outside wall with the safer barriers to get the NASCAR logo across the speedway, which was a great addition, and sort of repainted that inside area of the front straightaway to make it kind of look like real life, but it wasn't necessarily to scale and to design. But now with this new update, I'm super happy that they have refreshed the entire area art-wise, added all the new logos, and the tracks looks beautiful. But the same goes for the Kansas, the Las Vegas update, the Bristol, Dover updates. They're so cool. And for Bristol and Dover, Charlie, you can go into victory lane. So that's awesome.
Is correct. We are going to Dover in a few weeks' time, so that's also going to be something that these drivers are going to utilize. But also that Homestead refresh will also be shown in this series, as well as we will make our final stop there. But yeah, that's going to be exciting. And also, these sundown races that we're going to have really soon, iRacing updated a lot of sun and bloom and shadow effects as well. So that's going to be very, very pleasing to the eye for you, for us, and for our viewers on KBueno. So a lot of good things that are coming out of this update.
Yeah, the sunset races are going to be chef's kiss. They're going to be gorgeous when we broadcast them here on KBueno. Do you have a favorite part of the update? Is there anything that you were anticipating? Was it the art refreshes for the tracks, or?
I'm a big fan of the art refreshes and getting these tracks updated. I think Bristol looks amazing now, by the way. And that whole infield area is paved. That's fun to play around with as well. But for me, I don't race a lot of public lobbies anymore. I'm more of an AI connoisseur these days. I can go in, but my PC is not reliable to do a full league race. But in the next patch, they are coming out with adaptive AI, which will kind of adapt to your speed over the race. You don't really have to tinker it with it that much to really match it with your speed. So you can select the difficulty, and the AI will compensate for your speed and put it and apply it to their own. So that's something that I am very much looking forward to.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that as well. Just to play around with the AI a little more as Colin Forster deep dives. That's turn 19 in the fight with BBR driver Duncan Fall. Goes right into the gravel, but he avoids any walls or barriers, so he will continue, but he'll drop all the way to 16th, and he'll try to go to pit road, but he cuts off his teammate Lance Hill. Teammate to teammate action as Hill was coming down pit road.
It's friendly fire coming into the pit lane. I'm not sure. Probably, I would assume, a lack of communication coming into there. Oh, wow, I'm seeing that Whataburger logo for the first time. But these two drivers are trying to go at the same time. Oh, and makes contact. He's going to have to miss and go around for his pit stop.
I mean, good decision on Forrester's end to back out and not fully commit to the dive into pit lane, because he would have seen a face full of the tire barriers that greet you there in turn 20. So thankfully he got out of harm's way, but contact with his teammate there, just a late decision to come down pit road. And so the strategy continues. Remember, Bacalhau, Launslager, Benson and company that came down pit road, they're sort of flailing within this top 10. And that does include Curtis Kelly, who just came down pit road and has dropped to 14th. So this is the marker inside 15 laps to go where everyone is making their calls for pit lane, even though they did come down at the competition caution, to which I ask, when does Brandon Hawken come in? He's now 13 or 10 laps in his stint. He is yet to decide to come in. How late will he wait to enter pit road, knowing that he will give the lead away to Lawson Peel?
Well, in a race like this where there's no yellow flags, you're always watching the car behind you and see what their move is, and you're going to try to cover their strategy. So I'm going to expect Lawson Peel to come down at least a lap or two early, and then Brandon Hawkins is going to try to cover that up, because you don't want to have someone behind you have too many laps on fresh tires to make up as much time as they can. But also, you don't want to come in too late for these guys, because that's only going to give more advantage to the Reedy Motorsports trio that came in.
Yeah, and they're not too far behind either. Reedy is the leading car in 9th place, and Benson's a couple tenths of a second behind in 10th. So they are in a prime position to where, as everyone up front comes down pit road little by little, it's going to give a further advantage to these Reedy Motorsports drivers. As here come Escamilla, there is Jaden Porter down pit road as well. So drivers in the midst of the back half of the top 10 come in this time by, with 14 laps to go. So it leaves Dusty Applin, Nicholas Baumann, Jonathan Jurgensmeyer, Gabriel Dahari, Lawson Peel, and Brandon Hawken to come down into pit lane. So that's going to be fun to see what Lawson does alternatively to Hawken, because he can't beat him on raw pace as we've seen over this run, but what he can do is beat him on strategy, and he put himself in a good spot right behind Hawken as they were merging through the traffic off of the restart. So now what does he do in the attempt to get a better finish than second, to where he's finished the last two of these COTA races in that very spot? Albeit this one less heartbreaking than the last two, where he was couple of 100 feet away from the checkered flag. This time a little out of reach, 7.5 seconds between your front runners. And there's Dahari back in third, about 26.8 seconds away from Hawkins Chevrolet. Jurgensmeyer 34.5 seconds away in P4. And so everyone's just spread out at this point. But shout out to Jurgensmeyer and to Dusty Applin, two drivers that have been scrapping for position inside the top 10. Jurgensmeyer a race-high 4th, and Dusty Applin now inside the top 5.
And drivers that are just putting together good runs today. That's the main part of road courses, these long, spread-out races where you just need to find a rhythm. Putting together and piecing together a good race is so important for a race that's 35 laps on such a big track. So these guys are doing good for themselves, and they're just going to get their one pit stop pretty cleanly and try and coast to these last 13 laps at the end. So it's looking good for these guys.
And Jonathan Jurgensmeyer has yet to see a top 10 since his second career start at the Bristol Motor Speedway. That was months ago, where Kyle Tursak grabbed his first career 4-wide win in his debut. Jurgensmeyer has yet to find similar success. His last finish was 15th in his last race at Pocono. He was involved in that huge crash off turn 3 on the white flag lap. So this is amazing to see Jurgensmeyer up here. Dusty Applin, who we've seen very, very strong in certain races throughout his first 4-wide season. His last good finish came all the way back at Atlanta, where he finished in 18th, but tons of strong pace in certain moments. And this road course race, if he holds where he's at, will be a really good points day, and for him, a demonstration as to how fast he can be. Watch 6 on back. Things may get a little fun between the teammates, Benson and Reedy, within a car length for P6.
And these drivers are clearly in communication with each other in their respective voice chats, but I mean, they could be setting themselves up for a really good finish here. So I'm sure they don't want to hold each other up too much, but this could be a friendly fire battle between these two drivers.
And don't want to end up like Forrester and Lance Hill there entering pit road. Want to be a little kind to each other on this strategy, especially knowing that you will have the good position once everyone up the road comes down the pit lane. Behind them, the Ford Mustang of Nicholas Baumann, the all-star winner from Las Vegas Motor Speedway, has seen some ups but plenty of downs in his opening campaign for the 4-wide racing series. Started inside the top 10 at Pocono last week, ended up in 16th place. His best finish of the season, 5th, and that was at the first race of the year at the Daytona International Speedway. So Baumann, lots of catching up trying to do here in the later portion of his rookie campaign, and as we noted in our playoff standings picture going into this race, Baumann is nearing that cut line spot. Him and his teammate Trevor Haley have fallen a little bit through the top 15, so they may be at mercy of getting bounced out of the playoff picture in these final few. So Bauman is trying to ensure at least a solid on-track race, very clean race car, as Trevor Haley in this race is a little bit further back in 26, hasn't had the night that he's yearned for here at Circuit of the Americas. So with 12 laps to go, Brandon Hawken is the commando leader, 8.5 seconds over Lawson Peel. Dahari sits in third. Jurgensmeyer and Applin, the aforementioned top 5, they remain where they are. And I don't know, Charlie, what lap is a good lap for any of these top 5 that have yet to come down pit road. But it is approaching. I mean, you're within at least 15 or more laps in the stint. At some point, someone's got to flinch, but it's up in the air as to who will it be.
I think definitely it's going to be within the next couple laps as they reach their end of the pit run. But I trust Brandon Hawkins' judgment. I trust Lawson Peel's judgment to come in, and that would be more correct than I would ever assume. But we see Dusty Applin and Craig Lounslager possibly tipping the hat and starting this pit stop run.
Nicholas Bauman is in as well, so those drivers at the back half of the top 10 making their decisions now, which leave the top 4 without a pit road entry in this second stint. Jurgensmeyer fourth, Dahari, Peel, and Hawken, but they're still pretty far away from the back end of the circuit. Hawken is just getting into the stadium section now, which was a little bit of trouble right in front with Eric Schaefer, who's back in 24th place. Seems to be okay, though. Gets things back sorted. But again, it's all about who will make that call for pit road as soon as they approach turn 19. Again, you got to make that cut left turn to make it to the pit road entry, and then get hard on the brakes for the pit road commitment cone and the line that follows with it. So here's Hawken, turn 19. Does he elect for pit road this time? By the answer, he'll think about it, but he's going to stay out.
But we'll take a look back at Lawson Peel, see if he makes that move, makes the jump with 12 laps to go, and he is, ding, 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 and he is the taker. And Brandon Hawkins certainly will try and cover that come next lap.
So just like we expected, Peel coming in earlier than the race leader. This time it's at lap number 25. And there's Gabriel Dahari, the onboard look from the third place Chevrolet, as he enters 19 for maybe the final time on his stint. Does he decide? No, he'll stay out the extra lap, so he'll take away second momentarily before he has to give it up on pit road, and Peel decides to make this gamble a little bit earlier. We did see this through the competition caution, and it sort of worked out for him, Charlie. I mean, he's been riding in second for most of this race, 4 tires and fuel for the Columbus, Mississippi native, but now as he cycles out in third, good position as soon as Brandon Hawken and Dahari hit the lane.
And this lap is all going to be about putting the best lap together possible, because the tire difference right now is absurd. Fresh tires versus old tires. Lawson Peel's going to have to put together a really good lap here to gain any sort of advantage on Brandon Hawken. He certainly does not want to finish second here for the third race in a row. That Sim Pilot and that number 12 is going to be navigating through these S's with precision, cold tires, but fast.
Did you just make a reference there? Sim Pilot navigating through the S's?
That is correct.
All right, well, good point there. But yes, this is a pivotal lap on cold tires, just making sure this car is nursed around the opening lap, especially given the track temperature that we were greeted with at the race start, 135 degrees Fahrenheit with an 87-degree ambient temperature in the air. And there's Jurgensmeyer, not too far behind, still yet to come down pit road. So Peel is slowing up a bit, but that's by design on this opening out lap through pit road, as Brandon Hawken finds some lap traffic. That's Trevor Haley he's going around now. Plenty of packed drivers that he has to find his way through. That appears to be Colin Forrester up the road, and some more cars to deal with. Lance Hill, the Stonks Motorsports teammates, going at it again. AJ Green right in front of them by a couple car lengths, and here comes Hawken with 10 laps to go at the stripe. Hawken down pit road.
Trying to cover that strategy here. He's going to take 4 fresh Goodyear tires and expected a full tank of fuel, or possibly less, actually, because this is less than 18 laps, which is the full fuel run. But Gabriel Dahari right here could be coming in as well. So the pit stop strategies are sweeping through this field right now with 10 to go.
Remember, Peel took 4 fresh Goodyear Eagles and some fuel. Hawken with the first preferred pit lane spot. And so he'll lift up the right side of his Chevrolet. That's Tyler Murray, the yellow and black donut machine coming out of pit road. Hawken staying down for the 4 fresh Goodyear Eagles. And Dahari will stay out, coming to 9 laps to go. Next time by, he will elect out, and there's Lawson Peel. Crucially, about 4.2 seconds back, Hawken is already at turn 1 with the race lead.
Kicks the back end around on those cold tires, but the gap that he built ahead of these guys was certainly enough to keep him ahead, even with his pit stop, especially Gabriel Dahari, who stayed out there. So now it's just cruise control. 10 laps to go at a racetrack that he has been so smooth around all day. No issues except a slight hiccup on that restart. He's in a really good spot to take this one home.
Remember, 152 laps led at the last 3 road course victories, all in consecutive fashion. And he's led a majority of this race tonight. Apart from maybe 2 or 3 laps, Hawken has maintained control. And just like we saw at Watkins Glen, nobody has been able to stop the Canadian from stepping up to the plate, in which would be his 4th race win of this 2025 season, would match him evenly with Steven Maggio, who picked up his 4th at Nashville Superspeedway a couple of weeks ago. And so Hawken will try and get his 4th by commanding the rest of the way through inside 10 laps to go. Remember, Lawson too far out of reach despite his attempted undercut, and still yet to beat Gabriel Dahari. He should get 2nd as soon as Dahari enters pit lane, and although Peel is faster, he has yet to find his way around at 72 Chevrolet. And then Jonathan Jurgensmeyer, who's kept his place in 4th, has also not hit pit road yet and may relinquish the 5th and 6th spots as Kyle Benson and Austin Reedy remain nose to tail. Benson did get around his teammate, and as they patrol through the top 10, business as usual. But as you pointed out earlier, Charlie, I mean, this is a good call to gain track position. I mean, in the situations that Benson and Reedy particularly were in, Benson getting turned on the opening turn on the opening lap, and Reedy having to deal with an end-of-line penalty after the Pocono penalty given to him last week, solid progression and an alternate strategy for a one-stopper that got them good points at the end, should this finish the way it does.
I mean, this is a really picture-perfect run. I mean, you can't really put together a race that's better than this, given the circumstances for these 2 drivers, Benson spitting and Austin Reedy getting that EOL on that number 1. So what a drive for these guys, all the way inside the top 5, avoided the chaos, and now they're just going to cruise home with 9 laps to go. Gabriel Dahari on pit road now.
There's Dahari in. Jurgensmeyer will stay out. He'll steal 3rd, still on the money to come down pit road within the next several laps before this is all said and done. There goes Benson. There goes Reedy. Although Dahari does have the fresh set of Goodyear Eagles. So if there is enough of a difference and Dahari has that pace, he can still regain this track position. He is in within somewhat of a striking distance by a couple of seconds. So plenty of time he can make up over this very, very long Circuit of the Americas track as Benson dives through the S's, trying to not hit those little sausage curbs, bright orange that will kick up your race car and cause havoc if you find in your left side or right side tires on them. And now I ask you, Charlie, as we dive into the end of this road course race, and we won't see another road course for a little while on the season until we get to the Roval in round number 1 of the playoffs, race 2. Is there a best stock car road course out there? And if so, which is it?
Oh, man. When I look at American road courses, I'm going to go a little bit off topic here. My favorite American road course is Road Atlanta. However, that is not a stock car road course. So I think you can't really go against the tracks that have been there for so long. I mean, Watkins Glen is such a good track for these stock cars and has put on such a good show over the course. And it's just such a good layout for these stock cars to navigate through with grass on both ends and a lot of close racing. So I think when it goes for stock car racing and NASCAR, Watkins Glen is a hard track for me to go against.
Yeah, that's a great typical road course. I mean, we talked about how expansive road course racing in NASCAR has become over the last several years. When you add COTA, when you add the Charlotte Roval, when you add the Daytona road course, now you're going to Mexico for the first time this year. You went to the Chicago street course back in 2023. You know, tons of history being made on the road course front to where you kind of got to be a bit of a road course ringer if you want to succeed in real life NASCAR. But before then, you only raced 2, and that was it, Sonoma and Watkins Glen. But Watkins Glen, as historic as it is such a wonderful track. I'd say that if we're talking about the OG NASCAR road courses, Sonoma is top tier. Gotta race it in the spring, though, when the greenery is all around the track. It's kind of tough to see all the dirt and desert-like look of Sonoma when it's through the summer, but when the grass grows in the winter and springtime, it's beautiful. But the track is great to drive overall, and it is one of those I think that will get an iRacing refresh at some point since it got repaved not that long ago. If we're talking overall road courses, though, I'm going to harp on it. I know Curtis Kelly will agree with me on this. Montreal, Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. The Nationwide Series is run here before. Xfinity Series was there for a little while as, oh, there's contact. Lance Hill and AJ Green. That's for 20 seconds.
That's a really pushy corner that they could have gotten involved in. I wouldn't be surprised if that's how it ended. Looks like a crossover move from number 1 here.
They're letting Brandon Hawken by.
It might be a little bit more egregious than that.
And they split the difference to let Hawken go by. They respected the race leader, but as soon as they entered the corner, the melee between Green and Hill gets Hill into the outside barrier. Not a great race for Stonks Motorsports as a whole, despite the promising start by Colin Forster, the defending race winner here. And then, boy, the teammates, and they have hit each other all night. So we saw Forster get into Hill entering pit road, and now Green and Hill get into each other. The teammates are non-stop this evening.
I think they're just having a little fun.
Yeah, they probably are. We know Stonks they like to have fun. First and foremost, they are a meme team, and they embrace that very well. Very fast trio of drivers, though. Lance Hill, a winner already this season at the Talladega Superspeedway. But I guess at this point of the race, they understand track position is not what they're looking for in a road course race, so they're just going to have fun while they can, and if that involves chaos, so be it. But back to my point to close it off, Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, goated road course, and for stock cars, it's great.
Yep, the Cup Series does warrant a visit there. I think if there was a wish list, a kind of a collective wish list of NASCAR fans across the country, I do think Circuit Gilles Villeneuve would be at the top as just as, well, I wouldn't say it's as wanted as a spring Sonoma race. And they tend to tease a lot of people during the spring by posting pictures and being like, hey, check out our track. It looks amazing, unlike when NASCAR comes here. But there's also that. I do want to add one answer, just because I love my home city so much. The track isn't fantastic, but it is certainly fun to sling a car around. I do have to go with the Chicago road course. I would love to catch a race there in my home city. Very glad that they were able to stop, or at least come here over the grave of Chicagoland Motor Speedway. You can't ask me about that because I'll get a little too upset about it. But
all right.
I do love that as well.
You know, we brought it up. Francisco and I brought it up on the Sunday broadcast for the DTH Cup Series. You brought up that you flew over Chicagoland and you got a really good look at it. I don't know how high you were. I'd say, I'm going to guess like 800 feet, maybe more than that. But
a little bit more. Yeah.
Okay,
no,
probably more. Yeah.
So I was time building as a student pilot, and I figured why not? I went and saw it actually a couple years ago when it was closer to its official closing. However, yeah, time building, I went over there. I was actually about 2,500 feet up.
Okay, I was way off. Never mind.
Well, it does fool you. It does look pretty close. But yeah, that was fun to go see an old friend. I haven't missed a Cup race there really since my childhood. And that still is a streak that lasts in today, given that they don't go there anymore. But it's fun, a little bit emotional, but I certainly miss it a lot, and it was a lot of fun to go see it.
Yeah, it's a really cool speedway, and we raced there earlier this season in the 4-wide series, and that brought us a banger of a race. Stock Motorsports, oh boy, they're all
AJ
over the
Green
place.
is also in there.
3 wide into turn 12, and you could tell down the back straightaway, Green and Hill were just trolling each other the whole way until Forster came around. I think they're going to pay their respects to the lead lap cars. That's Jonathan Jurgensmeyer.
I think they're leaving
Rivers
space.
Jones.
I think they're leaving space just so they can have a space of their own to do their shenanigans. We got to see another dive bomb here.
And by the way, this is all for lead lap position. This is or a lap down position, but this is for track position. This is 24th through 26th. So it's not like they're horsing around for no reason. There are some points on the line, at least a couple, when you look at beneath the top 20. And Green's holding it for now, but I don't know how much he's willing to slow up for Hill and for Forster. And there's a send, turn 20, and they're just having fun tonight.
Washing up the corner, they're 3 wide, and they're off.
I don't know if this reminds me of Dylan Basin back at Sonoma. I don't know how many years ago.
That's a name I have
where
not
they
heard
were
in
just
a while.
beating and banging on each other in those final laps, and then it was a monumental send into the final turn as there's Forster just cutting the turn 1 area through the grass. Yeah,
I do think that is one of the most fun. That is one of the funniest moments we've ever captured. There's a list of iconic moments on KBueno where you just kind of break out laughing when it's happening, and I do think that send back in the LWRC days, that was an all-timer there.
It was, I think Brady Weileman, was it? Brady Weileman,
It was
Dylan
Brady
Basin.
Weileman. Brady Weileman was racing a Denny Hamlin car, and that battle was really the closest battle up to that point, at least coming to the checkered flag, and they simply had enough of each other and kind of pulled a Tony Stewart, Brian Vickers into that hairpin.
Yeah, I mean, in Kyle Petty's words, what the blank was that? Something like that, but yeah, there are certain really funny moments in KBueno history. I don't know if we've had one recently. I don't know, have we?
I will say, KBueno is a lot more of a serious tone these days, I would say, but it has been a while since we have a true laugh out loud moment. Maybe Reliable is just pulling someone who is pretty hot on the mic into the voice chat at an unexpected time. That's a Shane D. Mantoba reference, by the way. Yeah. Martinsville. Yeah, a lot of good moments over the years.
This series was scheduled to go to Martinsville earlier this season, and I was fully prepared for some kind of meaning of life conversation, or maybe some heated drivers over the radio as well, like we had with D. Mantoba that one night, where that race had gone caution filled. But that's not to say that series alone would have caused the race like that, because any series, in my opinion, at Martinsville does get chaotic. You will find a lot of yellows at Martinsville just naturally in the sim. But yeah, that was certainly one of the moments of all time. Really funny is Austin Reedy dives into turn 1, gets the spot over Kyle Benson, and I don't know if this is a teammate giving a lending hand to the other. Remember, Reedy 20 points below the playoff cut line going into this race. I don't know if that was a design call by Benson to say, hey, I think you're faster than me, or I'm just going to let you have these extra points because you need them at this time of the season.
Those extra points are important, so I would not be surprised if that was a team call to get him as much points as possible, because he's going to need that, especially coming in these pretty unpredictable races.
And we've got Dover, Texas, and Daytona to close out that regular season. All 3 tracks to where we've seen varying success out of Murray Reedy Motorsports. The super speedways, they've been very strong. And Austin Reedy was just a couple of feet shy of winning the race last season in the playoffs before Benson stole it the last second with a move off turn 4 and put one of those quote-unquote Michael Waltrip half blocks down the back straightaway to sever off any type of run by the 3rd or 4th place car in line. And then these two just went wire to wire all the way to that checkered flag. And Reedy has yet to win a race in a couple of years. Season 5 was the placement of his last career victory, and did not get one with the Xfinity Series cars back in Season 6. And so looking for some sort of shining moment in these final few to enter the playoffs. He is still within grasp, so plenty of opportunities left for Reedy to get back into the game. But remember that threshold of 20 points. It does mean a lot when you go from single-digit point totals of a difference from 15th and 16th to double digits in 20 or more, because that means you need a very good race performance. And with Reedy stepping into 3rd, his fellow competitor in Brandon Banks all the way back a lap down in 27th, this will give Reedy a huge surge of momentum that he probably needed at Pocono last week, to which he crashed out on the final corner of the final lap. And so this will be a big-time positive gain for Reedy, a former winner here at Circuit of the Americas. There's Lawson Peel, who has gone around Trevor Haley. He has settled to about 14.8 seconds behind the race leader, Brandon Hawken. And should the race stay as is without any drastic mistakes, Brandon Hawken should be set for his 4th victory of the year, and what in all-time history would stand as his 9th career victory, 3rd on the all-time list.
It's impressive. That's a big resume, and that's only going to grow with the speed that we've seen out of Brandon Hawken, especially this season. This win, as it stands, is going to tie him for Stephen Maggio for the most wins in a single season, or in this single season, season number 7. That is 4. So Speaking of Steven Maggio, I'm actually seeing this paint scheme for probably the first time. I have not seen him yet, but he's certainly a driver with those 4 wins that is going to be formidable throughout the course of the season and in the playoffs. He's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, there are many tracks out there in the regular season schedule that's left and the playoff schedule to which Maggio will be a contender. I mean, we revisit Auto Club, the site of Maggio's first career win in his debut back then in the season. So it's a chance for him to go back-to-back in Fontana and allow an advancement automatically into the next round. And to which that former track used to be North Wilkesboro, switched to the 2-miler in Auto Club. I'm sure Maggio smiles all about that one as he fights with Juan Escamilla here for 11th place. But with this Interstate Batteries car, he did race it last week at Pocono. It just wasn't as fast as some of the other competition, given the strategy he, Porter, and Bacalhau implemented, to where they came down for a fuel stop to extend their strategy. On the long green flag run, things really didn't pan out in their favor, and then when things came down to overtime, Maggio was right around the area to which Bacalhau and Reedy had careened back onto the racing surface in turn 3. And while Maggio had been involved in a previous incident with Kyle Benson, put him in a pretty precarious spot. But you're right, Hawken is saying game on to Steven Maggio here inside these final 3 laps and letting the rookie know he can't quite pull away with things in the win column quite yet.
That's exactly right. And also denying a Bacalhau Bueno esports, or Bacalhau Bueno Racing, you're not particularly an esports team, a three-peat out of those drivers as well. As Steven Maggio took the win in Nashville, Jaden Porter took one at COTA, and that's not going to be happening again this week as Brandon Hawkins is going to take that win. And the highest current Bacalhau Bueno Racing driver is Jonathan Jurgensmeyer, sitting comfortably inside the top 10. So not as formidable of a force as they would be on an oval, but we're going to settle back into them as well, and we're going to expect these drivers to really be fighting for it again.
And Jurgensmeyer here with his career best finish of 6th place. If you can cross the checkered flag where he is, he's within grasp of Rivers Jones, who is back there in that red and white Toyota Camry. So the fight not exactly quite done for P6, but Jurgensmeyer will be the leading beacon for Bacalhau Bueno Racing on this COTA road course tonight. I mean, we know how fast Francisco was through practice and qualifying, but just, again, much like his previous starts in this series, encountering a ton of bad luck. And even though he has the speed to match some of the best in the series, it's just the circumstances that haven't gone his way, and frustrations definitely at an all-time high. Bacalhau in 17th right now, as he trails behind Mikey Neal, who's way up the road, about 11 seconds through in P16. And then about 9 seconds back is another car in Alexander Schumacher, good friend of ours at the KBueno Racing Network, and making his first 4-wide start, and announced that his work schedule will allow him to run Wednesday night. So a greeting to Schumacher in his first start from COTA. Pretty clean Detroit race car.
Yeah, it's good to see a little Shuey action out here. Yeah, the Detroit native proudly representing it on the side of his car. A pretty good run for his debut. I don't really see a scratch in that car. So I like Schumacher. That number 68 is looking pretty good, trying to coast it home here.
You know, one thing about road course racing is just surviving, keeping all 4 tires on the surface, and we don't have a lot of runoff here at COTA in the form of grass and gravel. So for the most part, if you do run wide, you're going to end up on the asphalt. But for rookies and particularly drivers that are new to road course racing, staying on the track is the biggest point of emphasis. And with the mistakes that happen with other drivers or just carnage that occurs across the track, you may end up just gaining natural track position by staying where you are and staying on the track, limiting all your mistakes. So a good showing in his opener for Schumacher. He will be, though, chased by the race leader, Brandon Hawken, and Schumacher may fall as the recent car a lap down. Hawken down to turn 11 off the back straightaway for what will be the penultimate time for the Canadian. Has been impressive all night long. And remember, in those last 3 road course races, that included his debut at Watkins Glen back in Season 6, then the Sonoma race later on in the campaign, and then the Watkins Glen solo road course race this year prior to this race tonight. All of them have come from the pole position. So he has never relinquished a spot apart from those competition caution strategies. And even then, doesn't take too long for Hawken to find his way back to the front. He's in the stadium section looking for the white flag.
And it didn't take him any time at all because, you know, when you qualify on the pole with such speed over a tenth over second place, That's going to be the type of speed that you're going to see on this racetrack. You mentioned staying on the racetrack. However, I do think those are skills that could be pulled from even a longer race, like some of these guys like to do the Rolex 24. If you're kind of a less experienced driver, you just want to stay on the track and gain that time that you would either way. And if you go off the track, that's really going to put you in a hole. But off the final corner, Brandon Hawken, final lap. It's not out of the question to see him sweep the road courses this season. He's about to go 2 for 3, barring anything that happens, but he's just going to cruise it home here.
And not surprising to see Hawken up front, particularly in this discipline of racing with stock cars, as Hawken currently competes in the Prodigy Racing League with Radical SR race cars, and they take on real-life racetracks across the country every single other week. And Hawken has stood out on the Sucker Punch team, was recruited by them in the Prodigy Racing draft. And the Toronto native, who lived a ton of his life in Lindsay, is stepping up here on iRacing, here in 4Wide, just like he did last season, trying to sweep the road courses for a second consecutive campaign. He has one more to complete at the Charlotte Roval when we get down to playoff action. And we talked about last season how formidable Brandon Hawken was from the jump, at a 7,000+ iRating driver, and someone who we imagine if he had a playoff eligible spot, he could have been a force to be reckoned with for the series championship. But because he was a rookie, because he didn't make the initial level of starts, he had to sit that one out, but still raced a ton of races with a smile on his face and a very positive attitude. And as he stepped into his first proper campaign in Season 7, he's got the playoff eligibility, he's got 3 wins to his resume, and will try to add a 4th as he rounds through Turn 12 for the final time and will enter the stadium section. And you'll see it once more before he encounters turns 19 and 20. It has been a masterclass effort for the Canadian all night long. And through many races this season, we've seen him come close, but come short at the checkered flag, to rookies, to seasoned veterans, and more. But it never phases the man who's oh so positive every time we talk to him. Brandon Hawken will find himself through turns 19 and 20 for the final time, and for the 4th consecutive time, Brandon Hawken rounds out the final corner with a clear racetrack. The Canadian in Brandon Hawken will take his 4th win of Season 7 and first from Circuit of the Americas in Austin.
Just a really complete race. Very scotch-free out of this number 98. Off the pole, a little bit of a hiccup on that restart, but that's no issue for him. Taking net P1, then fully P1 again, and he's going to take it at COTA tonight. Lawson Peel should round out the corner in second. A valiant effort that's going to result in his 3rd straight second-place finish here at COTA.
What a drive by Hawken, undisputed. Lawson Peel to second, and here's Murray Reedy Motorsports fighting for 3rd. Kyle Benson will take the spot. Austin Reedy will line it up in 4th. And after a call to stay out on the competition caution, they will reap the benefits, and Austin Reedy will put himself back into the playoff picture. Dahari ends up in 5th. Jonathan Jurgensmeyer closes out his best career finish in P6. Rivers Jones back in 7th. Lounslogger, Kelly, and Applin set to come around for 10th. As there's Escamilla with one more shot at Applin, it will not matter. But through the S's, that's where the celebration continues for Brandon Hawken, his 4th win of the season, matching Stephen Maggio.
And he's on his way to sweep the road courses again in this 4Wide TJ's Team Series. That's 2 of 3. We'll see if he can conquer the Charlotte Roval, that number 98. Certainly going to be no issue for him. And what a race. And that was a fun one to watch. All these strategies playing out. And I got to compliment, tip the hat to those Murray Reedy Motorsports guys who put themselves in the top 5. And this number 98 may be out of gas. That's how close it was.
Yeah, he cut it close on his final pit stop. And he will try and sputter this one. Maybe back to the front straightaway, but yeah, the revs are dead. Car is completely wasted of any type of gas. Hawken will try to roll it down the hill, and maybe a bit of help as well from a fellow competitor. That is Maggio right behind him. And that storybook, there's Jaden Porter sending his congratulations, and I do believe Maggio will try to assist the Canadian to get back to the start-finish line. In a sportsmanship effort.
You need 2 Bakayao Bueno racing drivers to get him all the way there, but it's a good deal of sportsmanship. And those are your 2 season-leading race winners there. That's the number 98 and the 51. These 2 are going to be fun to watch come playoff time as they fight for a championship. But for now, it's all smiles and hands held here as they give him a push down to the front straightaway.
It's a special moment between these 2 who have been very competitive since their entrance into the series together. And while Haken had been here a little earlier than Maggio did through Season 7, as soon as they encountered each other one-on-one, we found incredible racing between these 2. Between a Haken driver who's just stepping into the real-life scene and is making a name for himself out there in the real world, and Maggio who is just getting his bearings together in the sim racing world and showing off his skill. And the moments we've seen them go head-to-head at Charlotte, Chicagoland, and the list goes on, we have seen outstanding competition, hard but very clean racing, and this just shows the level of respect that Maggio has for Haken and vice versa, pushing him back around this COTA circuit and trying to get him back to the start-finish line where he can ensue his celebrations. In the meanwhile, we'll get to our unofficial results here from Austin, Texas after a grueling 35-lap race under the hot Texas sun, where Brandon Haken gets career win number 9, 4th of the season. As he winds up celebrating this evening, Lawson Peel takes his 3rd consecutive runner-up finish from COTA. This one a little less heartbreaking than the last 2, but he will end up with solid points after tonight. Kyle Benson, Austin Reedy, give credit to them all for their decision to not pit under the comp yellow sequence. They pitted a little bit later under green. And from there, just rallied off top 10 runs. Reedy will put himself back into the playoff conversation within reach of Brandon Banks for the top 15. Jonathan Jurgensmeyer, career best finish of 5th. River Jones backs in 6th. Craig Launslager, top 10 finish for him from the strategy in 7th. Curtis Kelly, all the chaos for him, ends up in 8th place. Dusty Appland with a top 10 career best for him. And Juan Escamilla rounds out the top 10 from COTA.
Moving on from top 10, Steven Maggio and Jaden Porter, the Bakayao Bueno Racing drivers, finished 11th and 12th. Nicholas Bauman, 13th. Mikey Neal, 14th. Duncan Fall and Francisco Bakayao, the 2 other Bakayao Bueno Racing drivers, will round out the cars on the lead lap. Daniel Moore in that 17, in that 7 finishes 17th. Trevor Haley, 18th. Alexander Schumacher, his first outing in the series, 19th. Gabriel Dahari found a little trouble en route to a 20th place finish.
Back in 21st is DBR's Eric Schaefer, followed by DBR's Michael Newbraw. Tyler Murray back in 23rd. Lance Hill finishes 24th, the best out of the 3 Stonks Motorsports cars. We'll get to the rest of them in just a bit. Brandon Banks in 25th. Craig Parks, 26th. Then there's Colin Forrester and AJ Green. Forrester had a very strong start, turned sour, and the same goes for Ethan Fonseca Moreno, who docks in 30th with Timothy Cook up the road in 29th place. And then here are the batch of final drivers in this 34-car field. Tristan Bailey, Christopher Bishop, Rodney Roberts, and Craig Rowe bring us the end of our 34-car field here from Austin, Texas. We'll take a moment to visit Victory Lane, where we are joined for the fourth time this season, first time at COTA, by Brandon Haken. Brandon, it was decimation from the start. Such a fast race car since you jumped into the practice and qualifying sessions. And now you're level with Steven Maggio on most wins of the season. How meaningful was this one, especially after it's been a little while since you've achieved a W?
Yeah, it's been a while. We had a lot of really close ones, but yeah, just couldn't quite get the job done in a lot of them. And yeah, I knew this would be a pretty good chance to maybe come and steal one. And yeah, it was yeah, man, yeah, car was a lot of fun to drive here, and had a lot more tire wear, I think, this time than we usually do. So that was cool, being able to you know, come in and get some fresh rubber, and then just kind of like normal, and it was good. Yeah, just had really good run there with Lawson. He was putting on some pretty good pressure, and Kyle too. We were kind of we were pickle car versus pickle car there, so well, wanted to try and beat him. But man, it was it was fun. After the restart, I knew I had slightly fresher tires than the few ahead of me, and I was thinking if I can just get a really break really deep going into one, and see if I can get a couple. And I think Austin Reedy, he did a really good job there holding on, and so I was just able to get by him, and then I was just trying to click off the laps one by one, and then once we got towards the end there, wasn't quite sure what we were going to do for tire strategy, but I think 4 tires is probably the way to go, and so I took that. Nothing went wrong there, and it was mostly smooth sailing to the end. It was really cool to get the W after it's been quite a while for sure.
And what did you make of that restart off the competition caution? Because there were several different calls made. Obviously, you and a majority of the field came in. Then Kyle Benson and the Murray Reedy Motorsports trio stay out without coming onto pit road. And then Peel stays out, having pit a couple of laps earlier, and you had to carve through them a little bit in that first sector through the S's. So what did you make of the strategies there and the overall chaos of that run-up entry to turn 1 and usually what follows down the hill?
See, I was hoping it would be kind of like Watkins Glen, where we ended up catching the pace car just before pitting, or just before pits opened. So, because if you can do that, you can if you have a big space between the cars behind, you can take tires and then still come out ahead. But we had the entire pace lap coming into the pit, so I wasn't. I was just hoping a lot of people also stayed out along with me, because I didn't want to end up back in 30th or anything, because that would have been a really tough job. But fortunately, not too many people pitted early, and so I think it was about 6th or 7th on the restart. I forget, and so that wasn't too bad. And especially with the fresh tires, the first few laps, you can put down some really fast laps, and if I was to do that, or if I was to pit earlier, I would have had slightly weaker tires on the restart. So I think it worked out well. It's always kind of a roll of the dice what happens, but it ended up working well.
So this is your 4th victory of the season, 9th career, your 3rd on the all-time list, and now you've got only a couple of left. Obviously, you and a couple of others are for sure secured into the playoff fight for season 7, but what kind of statement do you want to make in these final few with Dover, Texas, and Daytona upcoming?
Yeah, so those are an interesting few tracks. I'd love to do really well at Dover. I find I'm pretty decent at that track. Texas, it's gonna be interesting. I'm not sure if we're running the old or the new one. If it's the new one, I think I guess it depends how the dirty air plays out and how the setup is and everything. But I just hope to put up some strong runs here coming into the playoffs, get some good momentum, and then just try and do what I always do, but try to improve each time as well. So I've definitely had a few opportunities slip away, I think, this season. So I just gonna try and get everything dialed in, and try and put out a really strong fight in the playoffs.
Super exciting stuff, and obviously from watching you in the real life side with the Prodigy Racing League and seeing you on the sim here in 4Wide, been really cool to see, and the domination tonight, unquestioned here from COTA. Before we let you bounce, Brandon, anybody in particular you want to thank for tonight's run?
Yeah, just thank you guys in the booth as always. Everybody at 4Wide for putting on the show. It's it was a really good race, really clean, I think, and I had a lot of fun running with the guys up there front, and make sure to catch Prodigy Racing League on Mav TV Sundays at 9 p.m. Eastern, and looking forward to next week. It's should be a really good race.
Well, Brandon, as always, we really appreciate the time. Can't wait to see what you do out in the real world. But as for the sim, congratulations on the win from COTA, and looking forward to seeing you take on Dover next week on Wednesday.
Thanks, guys.
And it's Brandon Hawken takes over the top spot, leads 33 laps, bringing his total to 185 laps led over the last 4 road course events in his 4Wide career. We'll turn to second place, where we are joined by Lawson Peel. Lawson, I know this is your third consecutive runner-up finish. This one, though, came with a bit of strategy along with it to try and beat Brandon. What was the motive throughout the midway portion of this race as you were pondering up that strategy call?
Yeah, just anything I could do to get ahead of him. I mean, and just give myself a chance, right? But I didn't even keep him behind me for one corner, so didn't really work out very well. Maybe if I would have got the lead, I could have maybe held on to it for at least a couple laps, maybe, and just seen what the clean air was like. But maybe I should have just done what Reedy and Kyle and Craig did and just stayed out and not pitted before the stage caution. But I just never really got comfortable. I was missing corners and I was getting slowdowns and just four-wheel sliding through a lot of the corners and just always knowing what I had wasn't good enough and just trying to find more out of it. And so just could never really get it going and just didn't really have it. But, still happy with second, and we'll go on to, I guess, Texas next week.
So as you guys push forward tonight, a really good race overall, and you're one of the few drivers that have seen all three editions of this COTA race. Obviously, last season you guys didn't see it, but seasons 4 and 5, you were there for those two races, and then including tonight. So what big difference did you note from maybe that last race in season 5 to what you guys experienced tonight? Because I know the track temperature was probably at an all-time high, but the car's very different.
Yeah, I wasn't very comfortable with the hot temperatures. Like I said, I was just sliding through the corners a lot, and yeah, just constantly wishing I had more grip. I guess you always do, right? But I mean, I remember, back the first time we ran here, it was a lot different. They've changed it a lot since then, and I think being behind somebody in dirty air and just not having many places to pass, that effect is a lot worse now than it used to be. So it used to be a little bit easier, at least for me. I felt like to make passes here. It's definitely harder now. You kind of just get stuck, in that, 3/10 of a second gap there. And then if you try to send it down in a corner to outbreak somebody, you just miss the corner now. So kind of know not to do that, but didn't really have much of any racing in traffic to speak of at all tonight. I mean, just a couple restarts, but honestly a little boring. Just kind of driving along out there. Wishing I had a little bit more speed. Was just trying things to see if I could find anything, but just never really put it together.
But there are some positives to that. Obviously, the good points to go along with it. Another consistent finish for you after what's been a bit of a wild second half of this regular season. Now you guys move on. Dover, Texas, Daytona. A trio of tracks that are very different, but two venues that you're pretty good at. What do you anticipate in specifically Dover and Texas as you guys move on to the regular season finale?
Yeah, I guess I'm decent at Dover. I know I've run, I think I've been second there to Jaden. Maybe last time we ran there. He's always really good on the concrete. We all know that. So be looking out for him. Again, there, I'm sure he'll kind of have another strong run like he did at Darlington and at Nashville. So, Maggio was really fast at Nashville too. We'll see how he is on the concrete surface there. So we'll see. Hopefully just do as best I can and probably be looking forward to Texas a little bit more, and then Daytona, obviously anything can happen. So we'll just keep it going. Just happy with the way the season's gone. I've run pretty good and finished well and been fortunate to win some races. So, hats off to Hawken. He just outstanding all night and just, nothing for him. Obviously, it's hard to compete with that. So, and I know that he's probably, or a couple of us have probably taken some wins from him lately that he probably should have gotten. So, yeah, you gotta take those when you can get them, and fortunate to get them because when he shows up, it's kind of hard to beat what he had tonight. So, looking forward to just going on and seeing what we got the next few.
Well, nonetheless, you still have momentum and you're locked into the playoffs, so it could be a good stretch until that regular season finale at Daytona before we kick off the postseason. Lawson, before we let you go on tonight's runner-up finish, anybody you want to thank in particular for tonight's run?
Yeah, thanks to you, Francisco, Charlie, Keela, and everybody up in the booth. Thanks to Tyler, Benson, Reedy, Craig, everybody on the admin team. that helps them out. And thanks to my DVR teammates, Paul's Setup Shop. Thanks to everybody that watched tonight. And yeah, thanks to you guys again. Just appreciate what you guys do for us every week, Kenneth.
Well, we really appreciate it on our end, Lawson. Thank you for the time. Congratulations on the P2 finish. Always a pleasure to talk to you whenever we can. And best of luck as you guys head to the Monster Mile in Dover next week.
Appreciate it, man. See ya.
That's Lawson Peel. Second place here at COTA. Such a strong road course ringer and put in a bit of alternative strategy on his own right. And another team that put in an alternative strategy that worked out was Murray Motorsports. And it begins with Kyle Benson. Kyle, first of all, welcome. And I know you encountered the troubles before you could even complete the first lap. You were turned around at the uphill section in turn 1 and you had to fight back. But what was the decision behind staying out and trying to pit near halfway?
I just got to stay out of the mess. We were buried in track position after the mess happened in turn 1, but just needed to try something different, and I thought it would get me a little higher, honestly, just because we had to eliminate that second stop. But they were just on pit road for too short of a time to make up that ground. But I don't know, we just needed to try something different. Reedy said something, and I was like, screw it, let's just do it, because I really had nothing else to lose. I was already 13th, 14th position, and tried something different and paid out in the end.
And you guys fought tooth and nail. I mean, you guys at Murray Motorsports were at once nose to tail, 1, 2, 3 in the midst of the top 5. Then it was you and Reedy fighting for position into the podium spot here. Was there any consideration about the point situation? Because I know that for you, you're mostly locked in via points, but for Reedy, he's fallen a bit behind in the playoff tally. So was there any conversation about the playoff fight, or particularly any points racing, or were you guys just going at it for fun in those final few laps?
Oh, yeah, we talked about it, but at the end of the day, we're racers. We just want to race each other, and we always have a good time racing each other. So that's kind of what it came down to. I think slowdown's kind of screwed Reedy and getting a third place finish. But yeah, I mean, we talked about it. We knew that we were, with the best of the rest, so it was just kind of a fight for third the rest of the night. But really, it was just kind of, like I said, we talked about it. At the end of the day, we just wanted to race, and that's what we did.
And you guys put on a show to get some good points out of it, particularly. Now you guys get to the final 3. Dover, Texas, Daytona. You've won at Daytona before, and you did pretty well at Texas, I believe, the last time we were there with the Xfinity Series cars. So what do you try to do here in these final 3? I know we talked about it, just staying stable, but anything else you want to keep in mind for those final 3?
Really, the stuff I said earlier, just make sure you finish races like we did tonight. Just being up front. The only way you can win a race is being up front at the end, and maybe one of these times will come my way. I know Dover's a little iffy for me. I've been kind of up and down on that racetrack the last few years, but I think Texas and Daytona is a good way to finish off at least the regular season, just to get the the playoffs started up. But yeah, I think we can just keep doing what I've been doing. Getting these rebounds are really good for having a roller coaster of a day. So just finishing races and just keeping up front, and maybe one of these times we'll luck turn around and we'll be sitting in the victory lane.
Well, Kyle, a solid night here from Circuit of the Americas, and another good podium for the points along the way. Before we let you go, anybody in particular you want to give a shout out to for tonight's run?
Oh yeah, everybody at Murray Motorsports. We had a good strategy going, and Craig got a good finish too. And just keeping it up front, keeping the team points up is paramount. In these races. So working as a team is really, really paramount. And I want to thank you guys for the broadcast. Appreciate you talking to me earlier today. It was a lot of fun. Charlie for stepping up in the booth tonight with Keelan being gone. But I know Keelan's sitting there, wherever he's at, watching this. So hello, Keelan, if you're watching. But yeah, no, all the production you guys put in is just bar none the best in the world. So I just got to give a big thank for you guys. But other than that, though, just everybody that comes in for it every week, and hopefully we'll be talking to you guys next week.
That's always very appreciated on our end, and Kyle, just how much respect we have for you guys at the league and how much love we have for this particular series. So it means a lot on our end, and it was fun talking with you earlier this afternoon, getting into some hip-hop, little conversations here and there, but good stuff. Oh, yeah. And great job in the P3 today, and we'll see you guys at Dover next week. Congrats on the podium.
All right, appreciate it, man. Thank you.
That's Kyle Benson for Murray Motorsports. Gets the strategy to pan out his way, and he ends up as the final driver on the podium tonight from COTA, to which we stand and we move forward, this time to a short track, the Monster Mile, White Lightning, whatever nickname you want to give the short track in Dover, Delaware. That will be the host of race number 19 in our 2025 campaign. That will come your way next Wednesday, March 19th. You'll find the pre-race coverage at 8:45 p.m. Eastern before we drop the green at 9:10 p.m. Eastern. You'll find myself, hopefully, Keelan, Charlie, Francisco will be joining me in the booth for next week's action. Again, March 19th, 8:45 p.m. Eastern for the Drop in the Hammer pre-race show, 9:10 p.m. Eastern for the beginning of race coverage. So we end up in the final three, all of them ovals, short track, mile and a half, super speedway. Charlie, I think we're gonna see chaos. Do you?
It's gonna be a lot of fun. We're, especially with a stop to Dover. We're going to Texas. A fairly tame mile and a half these days, but rushing straight into Talladega to close out this regular season. It's gonna be a lot of fun for these guys and for us to watch as well. But for Brandon Hawken, a dominating win and a well-deserved one today, where he finally kind of gets one in his grasp and takes one home. There was a really great segment on him that was posted by Racing Prodigy and Sucker Punch of him kind of speaking of his experience on the autism spectrum, and just to hear his story and to see him find such an element in a race car, whether that's at a simulator or in his real life racing experience, that can alleviate some of those challenges that may come from that. It's really special to hear his story and his success that subsequently comes from his experience in a race car and seeing him have fun. So it makes these wins and talking about him very special, and I know it means a lot to him as well to have that kind of story and that success. So congratulations to Brandon Hawken once again for taking home the race win tonight. It was an entertaining one from the lead, drop of the green flag, the restart, and these battles in the back. A lot of people racing each other as hard as they can. So it was a fun one from COTA tonight, and I'm sure these guys are ready to strap up and hit the concrete next week.
I echo that same sentiment with Brandon Hawken. Such a great story for the Canadian, and I think it makes us feel a little bit special that he spends his Wednesday nights with us racing on a 4-wide racing series. It's very competitive, and every time we talk to him, so happy, so positive. It's always a joy to have him in the booth. This time, though, it's in victory lane for the 4th time in this season, into which we move on to Monster Mile next week at the virtual Dover Motor Speedway. So for Tyler Murray and the entire admin team and council at 4-Wide Racing that makes these races happen each and every week, and for everyone at the KBueno Racing Network that we did not see on the broadcast tonight, for Eli Comerford, our good friend Francisco Bacchiao, who was on the track tonight, and Keelan Belsha, who we hope feels better very soon, and for our crew on the broadcast tonight, for Charlie Byer joining me in the booth, I'm Kenneth Bueno, waving so long from Austin, Texas. Brandon Hawken, 9th career 4-wide win, 4th of the 2025 season, as we move to Dover next Wednesday night.